Chapter 705. Seeing Ji-hai standing there without dodging and merely revealing his unshaken body of the Wisdom King, as though waiting to clash with him, Lu Qing felt his blood boiling. He no longer considered any changes and displayed the fighting character he had drawn earlier. He didn't limit himself to the influence of his mind and willpower. If you want to fight, then let's fight. Bam! Lu Qing was like a rocket, propelled by flames behind him. In an instant, he cleared the space between them and threw a punch. Along with this punch, his muscles bulged as if they had all evolved into fascia and connective tissue, outlining one after another ferocious serpent after another. His skin was all greenish-black in contrast, and he was more than a few times taller and thicker. Ji-hai's eyes were calm. He raised his right arm, which was about to tear his monk robes apart, and threw a punch forward. Clang! A crisp sound rang through the clouds, and an invisible shockwave spread in all directions. Lu Qing felt his arm go numb, and his body wobbled. He almost lost his balance and was pushed back 2 steps by the immense force. One used the fighting formula, while the other used the unmovable body of the Wisdom King. In terms of pure strength, he was slightly inferior. Buzz! Buzz! Ji-hai's right fist hovered in midair. From his knuckles to his biceps, the glassy greenish-black skin was trembling slightly, like a steel plate that was hit by a hammer. At the last moment of the fighting formula, Lu Qing had added Thunder Roar Zen. Bam! As he retreated, the fire force in his body condensed and exploded. He forcefully changed his direction and flashed to Ji-hai's right. The muscles on his left leg tightened, and he was about to pull it out. Just as Ji-hai was about to silently withdraw his kick and take the initiative to attack, the flame force that had only exploded on the surface exploded once again. It was as though an invisible hand had pushed Lu Qing, forcing him to drag his left leg and turn to the back of his enemy. Second change of direction. Ji-hai leaned back, his left elbow glowing with the greenish-black Buddha's light. He charged at Lu Qing without panicking. However, there was still some remaining fire force. It completely exploded, turning into a ferocious current. While slightly damaging Lu Qing's muscles, it allowed him to follow his previous trajectory and reappear on the right side of his opponent. 3 directional changes. This was a high-end application of the force of the fire sect, originating from the golden godly flames. Using Emperor Yen as a substitute, even a physical invulnerability expert with strong mental strength and control over his body could only perform 3 rounds of jet spray. Only when one reached the level of the Dragon King would one be able to perform 4 rounds of jet spray. Ji-hai's unshaken body of the Wisdom King had strong defense, great strength, and fast speed. He could cultivate his force and use the Buddha's aura. There were almost no flaws. The only flaw was that it was a little clumsy. It wasn't agile enough in dodging. Of course, this was only for physical invulnerability experts who were good at movement techniques. Before the referee announced the start of the match, Lu Qing had already planned to use the triple directional maneuver against Ji-hai. Now, he didn't even need to think about it and used it naturally, rendering Ji-hai's thought steal useless. Ji-hai had also cultivated thought steal, but unlike Abbot Fa Yuan and Living Buddha, Shi Shan, he had only reached the initial stage. However, at such a close distance, Lu Qing was still worried that Ji-hai would notice something amiss. Hence, he had already thought of a change in the opening. Pa! A crisp and short sound broke through the air. Lu Qing mysteriously returned to his opponent's right side. He lowered his left fist and punched out. Missing his left elbow, Ji-hai took a deep breath and clenched his trembling right fist. He suddenly hammered down. Although he was a little slower, he still managed to make it in time since he was fighting from the inside. Seeing that their fists were about to collide, Lu Qing suddenly shifted his center of gravity. As though he was dragging a long spear, he forcefully moved his left arm and changed his position once more. Once again, he was behind his opponent. 4th directional maneuver. This time, he didn't use the force of the fire sect. Instead, he used his body refining and dance stage techniques. In the physical invulnerability stage, this was something that was eliminated. The signs were too obvious and the directional maneuver was too slow. It was equivalent to digging a hole for oneself. But now, Zhi was completely under Lu Cheng's control. He didn't expect Lu Cheng to use such a simple maneuver and wasn't mentally prepared. By the time he realized something was amiss, it was already too late. In terms of moves, there was no such thing as ordinary. There was only suitability. After 3 directional maneuvers, it was just right to continue like this. The image of a yellow monk's robe, chunks of muscles, and the bone dragon sandwiched in the middle appeared in Lu Cheng's eyes. Prepared, he lowered his center of gravity, swung his shoulders, and threw his right fist forward like a cannonball towards Zhi's spine. After 4 consecutive directional maneuvers, he was nearing the end. He couldn't use a powerful move for the time being, but he didn't want to give up this opportunity. Therefore, he used a simplified physical invulnerability move. However, this simplified physical invulnerability move might be more useful than a real physical invulnerability move. The strength of unmovable body of the Wisdom King was only slightly weaker than invulnerability body of Vajra. It was common for him to withstand attacks head-on. It was best to avoid the strong points and attack the weak points. For example, internal explosion. What Lu Cheng threw out was the internal explosion punch. Even though it would be weakened by the unmovable body of the Wisdom King when it penetrated his body, the remaining Emperor Yen force would explode inside his body. It would be enough to give Zhi a hard time. Furthermore, the fist was aimed at his spine. The surface of Lu Cheng's fist was pale purple, while Zhi's back was wide open. Many commentators stopped talking and waited for the result. Suddenly, a bright, pure, greenish-black light shone. An illusory yet real arm grew from Zhi's shoulder blade. There were many Buddhist markings on it, as though it could repel demons and vanquish evil spirits. Advent of the Wisdom King. This was Zhi's ultimate move from the Wisdom King transformation. Bam! The illusory arm swung down rapidly and hit Lu Cheng's right fist. Without a sound, the front part of the arm shattered into pieces of illusory glass. They danced around like fireflies, but they also deflected the fatal punch. Before the audience could react, the remaining half of the arm suddenly extended and turned into a greenish-black rope, wrapping around Lu Cheng's fist, forearm, and arm. Unmovable Wisdom King, one hand holding the rope, the other holding the sword. Lu Cheng's heart was as cold as ice. He didn't feel dejected or disappointed. Taking a deep breath, he tugged hard, breaking the rope and taking advantage of the momentum to retreat. Crack! 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 The moment the rope broke, it split open and burst into flames. The flames were greenish-black in color and seemed illusory. They didn't seem to have any temperature. Even with Lu Cheng's ability to control fire, he couldn't stop them from spreading. However, they didn't ignite his clothes or burn his skin. Instead, they seeped into his body. The devil subduing precious fire that came with the unmovable Wisdom King. Once they burned their internal organs, the result was obvious. Seeing this, Lu Cheng's pupils shrank. He didn't dare delay. His right arm was instantly covered in a crystalline ice wall, freezing the devil subduing fire within. With this delay, Zhi had recovered. He turned sideways and swung his right fist, whipping it towards Lu Cheng with greenish-black flames. At the same time, 2 illusory arms formed from the greenish-black light grew from his shoulders. One was holding a sword, the other was holding a rope. He attacked with all his might without any regard for energy consumption. This form and his handsome face formed a strange image. Bam! 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 Zhi swung his 4 arms and hammered at his opponent like a maniac. Lu Cheng's qi and blood were fluctuating, and his arms were sore and numb. He almost couldn't keep up with the rhythm and withstand the pressure. He had tried many times to change the situation and escape, but Zhi, who had 4 arms, didn't give him a chance at all. He would always forcefully break his arms, followed by a new round of attacks. Regardless of whether it was the scorching heat of the Emperor Yen force or the slowing and freezing effect of the Ice Spirit force, they couldn't shake the unshaken body of the Wisdom King. Amidst the purple flames, the greenish-black skin glowed with a glassy light, without a single trace of burn. Boulders flew everywhere. Lu Cheng was at a complete disadvantage and entered the rhythm of the Wisdom King. However, his ice heart was firm and he didn't panic at all. As he defended, he gradually understood why his attempts to escape had always failed. Thought Steal. Ji Hai used Thought Steal to detect the clues in advance. If the combination of All-Seeing God and Heaven-Earth Connection allowed Lu Cheng to predict his opponent's next move in the blink of an eye, then Thought Steal allowed him to predict his opponent's next move before he made any preparations. To deal with this unique skill, he had to either increase his distance and think carefully before approaching, or he had to be mindful of thoughtlessness. The former was what Lu Cheng wanted to do but was always stopped by Ji Hai. He could only rely on thoughtlessness. After repeated training, Lu Cheng was able to apply his moves instinctively. However, in battle, he had to make judgments based on his opponent's situation. What he wanted to achieve was what he got. Just treat this as morning training. Just treat this as morning training. Lu Cheng, who kept hypnotizing himself, wasn't worried about being heard by Ji Hai. Ji Hai wouldn't know his state and routine during morning training. Bam! He raised his arms and blocked the two illusory arms smashing downwards. Then, without thinking about what Ji Hai would do or how he would react, he shrunk his body and half-squatted. His left fist shot out from his waist and diagonally upwards, aiming for the enemy's vitals. It was a mysterious move. Ji Hai's eyes flickered. He extended both his palms, one towards his crotch and the other towards Lu Cheng's head. However, Lu Cheng squatted even deeper. Just as his left fist made contact with Ji Hai's palm, he exerted force and rebounded. Like a cannonball, he shot out close to the ground and narrowly avoided Ji Hai's follow-up attack. Halfway through, he extended his curled body. Pressing his palms against the ground, he shifted and changed directions continuously in an attempt to increase the distance between them and form the 5 flames. At this moment, Ji Hai formed hand seals and said solemnly, "N.I." Lu Cheng's vision blurred. He realized that Ji Hai had reappeared in front of him. All the dodging seemed to be for the sake of closing in. N.I. syllable? Mental influence? Interfering with my judgment of direction? So much so that I came back after circling around? Lu Cheng knew that the Ni syllable was a secret technique related to the mind. However, he didn't expect it to have such a unique application in the hands of Wisdom King Ji Hai. It gave him the feeling that he couldn't escape from Ji Hai's grasp. So close, yet so far. If I tell you to close in, you have to close in. If I tell you to stay away, you have to stay away. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Lu Cheng took a deep breath and stopped running towards Ji Hai. He gathered his qi, blood, force, and mind at his lower abdomen and drew an ancient and complicated symbol formed by 9 seal scripts in the miniature universe. Confrontation. Army. Fighting. Swordsman. Wholeness. Formation. Deference. Forwarding. Attainment. He felt invigorated. He felt as if something around him had been torn apart. There were no longer any undercurrents that could interfere with his judgment. Seeing that Ji Hai was closing in, he didn't take the opportunity to increase the distance. Instead, he released his Dan force and formed hand seals. Army. Along with this ancient syllable, Lu Cheng seemed to recall the scene of his first life-or-death battle in Shushan. He recalled the thrill of taking a life in 3 to 5 moves. He recalled the professional 9th pin from the dark sect who was bleeding from his 7 orifices after being hit by his palms. He recalled the life-threatening battle in the underground garage. He recalled Gu Hui, whose brain was blown apart by his own slap. He recalled the mummy that vanished under the cosmic phantom. He recalled the dark night bat whose skull was smashed by his own attack. He recalled the physical invulnerability expert from the Witch King lineage, Talon. The murderous aura from all these life-or-death battles and the sharpness of his blade were all infused into the army formula and enveloped Wisdom King Ji-hai. As a modern monk, this was what he lacked. In the past few days, Lu Cheng had discussed the shortcomings of the Wisdom King with Empress Luo, Lu Yan, Guijia, Yan Zhika, Peng Liyun, Ren Li, and the rest. They seriously considered if there were any openings that could be exploited. Other than his lack of agility, this was the only thing he could think of. He had also prepared a surprise for this. He recreated the past and developed the army formula, greatly increasing its power. Army. Just as Ji-hai approached, he felt a chill run down his spine. He smelled blood and danger and felt as if his head was about to explode. It was so clear and profound. His Zen mind was so deep that he wouldn't lose his composure. However, he couldn't help but shudder. He wanted to defend himself, so his movements paused. This pause was exactly what Lu Cheng wanted. Using the momentum of his Dan Qi, he took a step forward with his left foot. His entire body was in a reverse position, like a wound spring. He raised his right arm and clenched his fist. The center of his palm was dark and deep like the universe, embellished by specks of light. Tilting northwest, sinking southeast. Bam! His palm came down, and the surroundings turned dark. It was as though he had turned into a chaotic, boiling porridge. Ji-hai's eyes narrowed. It was too late for him to dodge. The greenish-black glow on his body shone brightly. His two fists and the two illusory arms of the Wisdom King blocked the attack. Boom! The boiling porridge swirled violently, and the greenish-black glow dissipated. The illusory objects instantly turned invisible and filled up the temporary vacuum. Obvious cracks appeared on Ji-hai's arms, as though his skin and muscles were made of metal. This was the unique characteristic of the unshaken body of the Wisdom King. After the successful punch, Lu Cheng quickly used force concentration. He extended his left palm and extended his fingers, grabbing towards Ji-hai's head. He didn't give him any chance to catch his breath, just like how he dealt with the god-slaying saber, Lu Yonyuan. Ji-hai raised his right arm forcefully and placed it in front of his face. Whether it was his eyes or his temples, they were all weak points that even an invincible Vajra monk had to defend against. Bam! The 5 fingers grabbed onto Ji-hai's arm, but there wasn't any tearing force. Instead, white frost and crystals spread out. After tilting northwest, sinking southeast, Lu Cheng quickly used Dan equilibrium to retract his flame force, causing extreme coldness to appear at the edge of the starry sky. Self-created unique skill, Lament of the Ice Queen. Seeing that he was about to be sealed in ice, Ji-hai's eyelids drooped. Pale golden flames burned on the surface of his body. They expanded and expanded, transforming into 8 heavenly dragons that shattered and melted into crystals. Protective azure flames. Lu Cheng didn't succeed in his first move, so he immediately retracted his left palm and pulled his right arm back. His fist shot out like lightning, and the excess flame force behind him due to Lament of the Ice Queen naturally formed a sphere. It was red with faint purple hidden within. He couldn't care less about his appearance. He couldn't allow Ji-hai to adjust to the situation as quickly as possible. Ji-hai lowered his waist slightly and met the attack with his left fist. The Buddha light was much dimmer than before. Boom! The fist collided with the fireball, and the flames surged. The crack on Ji-hai's left arm deepened, but there wasn't any blood. He took 3 steps back. Activating the attainment formula, Lu Cheng rushed forward and stomped his left foot on the ground. Hundreds of broken stones flew up and shot towards his opponent's lower body like a crossbow, forcing him to dodge or defend in a panic. Unexpectedly, Ji-hai didn't do anything else. He merely turned his thigh inward. Bam! 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 The rocks hit Ji-hai's calves and thighs, but they only tore his pants. They didn't break through the bruises. Bam! Bam! 2 of the lucky ones made it through and landed on Ji-hai's crotch. However, he didn't groan in pain even though they were crushed. Is this the effect of the iron crotch technique? Lu Cheng was surprised. However, his movements didn't slow down. Using the force of the stomp, he straightened his back and punched at the temples of his opponent. Covered in faint purple, his fists were like venomous dragons emerging from the sea. Both of his arms were injured, and he hadn't adjusted his breathing. Ji Hai could only half-squat, shrink his head, and dodge the attack. Bam! After destroying the airflow with one punch, Lu Cheng's legs flew up and launched a series of kicks. Amidst the crisp sounds, the afterimages of his legs burned with purple flames appeared. Ji Hai blocked a few of them, then flipped backwards. Using his legs as razors, he forcefully whipped upwards. Bam! After their legs collided, Lu Cheng took advantage of the momentum to leap higher. He shrunk his body into a ball, then extended his right hand and pressed down. Heaven and earth turned pitch black, with countless lights embellishing it. It was as though the starry sky was reflected here. Fundamental unique skill, Cosmic Phantom. Just as Ji Hai's feet touched the ground, his surroundings were sealed in ice. With a thought, he preemptively made a hand seal. Silently, he became an insect trapped in amber, unable to move. He could only watch as the stars came crashing down on him one after another. Ba! A solemn Buddhist voice came from the ice, and Ji Hai's aura surged. The Ba syllable could temporarily increase one's strength, but it couldn't bring about a huge leap in strength. If the Wisdom King, who was already at the peak of physical invulnerability, used it, wouldn't he be close to the Forbidden Zone, like the Dragon King and Warrior Sage? If the unmovable body of the Wisdom King were close to the Forbidden Zone, wouldn't it show? Just as Lu Cheng was thinking, the scene before him changed. In the ice that was shattered and melted by the stars, boundless radiance erupted. They didn't jump around randomly. Instead, they formed a majestic Buddha statue made of pure light. The Buddha statue extended its right hand, its palm glowing with boundless radiance. The stars were drawn towards it and fell one after another. Vairocana, Advent. The Buddha closed its palm, and the dazzling radiance dissipated. Color returned to heaven and earth. Lu Cheng thought that the temporarily enhanced Vairocana body would dissipate quickly. However, he realized that the glaze realm created by the pagodas was converging on Ji Hai, allowing him to barely hold on. TSK, home ground advantage. Lu Cheng did a somersault. Just as he landed, the Buddha statue made of pure light appeared in front of him. The palm enveloped everything and pressed down. There was no way to avoid it. Lu Cheng knew that this was a realistic illusion caused by the strong influence on his mind. He quickly visualized the complete 9 words formula, using the complex seal scripts to strengthen himself and weaken his enemies to defend against all of this. Lin. Army. Fighting. Swordsman. Wholeness. Array. Deference. Forward. Attainment. All the ancient words lit up. The Buddha light in his eyes faded, and he finally saw Ji Hai. His body was trembling, and he looked exhausted. He forced his right hand to strike over. Boundless radiance gathered in his palm. At this moment, Lu Cheng, who had used the 9 words formula, couldn't execute any more complex moves. He channeled all the Emperor Yen and Ice Spirit in his body, causing them to surge out from his right and left fists. Bam! Bam! He extended his fists. One was covered in terrifying purple flames, while the other was surrounded by frost. Just as they were about to block the Vairocana body's palm, they suddenly drew close to each other and stuck close. The ice and fire balanced, forming a whirlpool. A ball of darkness appeared. Poof! When the Buddha's palm hit, the light and darkness disappeared together. With the building as the center, the ground within a radius of more than 10 meters suddenly collapsed, forming a pit. The location where the fist and palm collided was 2 meters deep. Lu Cheng's legs were trembling, just like when he was young and tried to be a hero in the dead of winter. Blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. His breath was at its lowest point, and only a little force remained in his body. He didn't think about anything. He formed a hand seal naturally, evoking the mysterious words. He said solemnly, "Wholeness." The moment he said wholeness, Lu Cheng's mental and physical strength returned to normal. He was a good man again. The Wisdom King, Ji Hai, also shouted solemnly, "Let's go." Bang! Mystery descended. His fatigue disappeared, and his condition was refreshed. These two are truly evenly matched, meeting each other in a game of chess. Poison Milk Hierarch, He Xiaowei commented, one fought half a round, while the other was affected by the home field advantage. They're on par with each other. There's going to be a fierce battle coming up. P.S. I'm just a little short of 6,000 words, so I won't fill it up. The extra words are for everyone. Chapter 706. Lu Cheng's thoughts were similar to He Xiaowei's. Knowing that he had a tough battle ahead of him, he immediately used force concentration after using the wholeness formula. He concentrated the churning of his qi and blood, the trembling of his bones, the soreness of his muscles, and all the other negative effects on his body into his lower abdomen, alleviating them as much as possible. At the same time, he released and retracted his Dan qi. Leveraging the force, he leaped back and faced Ji Hai, retreating to the edge of the crater at high speed. The Emperor Yen hidden in his body was ready to explode at any moment, allowing him to change directions without warning and avoid being targeted by his opponent. After both of them refreshed, Lu Cheng quickly grasped the distance between them. He judged that he wouldn't be able to stop Ji Hai from using the Ba formula to upgrade his Akalanatha to Virokana. Since that was the case, attacking blindly was equivalent to walking right into a trap. He might as well switch to a battle of attrition, restraining his temper and wearing out his opponent. Be it the wholeness formula or the recovery of the Ba formula, they were both effects of force stimulation. It looked like he had returned to his peak, but the rate of decline was much faster than normal. In the same state, Lu Cheng had consciously strengthened his physical strength and mental fortitude since he started practicing martial arts. He had been suppressing himself and using the 9 words formula to train the latter. Even if it was the Dragon King or the Warrior Sage, he still had a chance of winning, let alone the Wisdom King, Ji Hai. Seeing his opponent quickly leave the crater, Ji Hai didn't wait in his spot. He patiently recovered, just like when he faced Empress Luo, who had just fought a fierce battle. His monk robes fluttered as he stepped on a lotus flower and rapidly chased after his opponent. As he moved and turned, there was the rumbling of thunder that sounded like Buddha's preaching. At other times, there was the transcendent sound of enlightenment. At other times, there was a majestic roar that shook the soul. Great cloud thunder roar. Great wisdom roar. Great lion roar. Ji Hai had already reached the highest level of the lotus seal movement technique, 8 accompanying notes. However, the leakless sound, liberation sound, lion roar, wisdom roar, and thunder roar weren't as good as the previous 3. Apart from the nimble movements, Ji Hai was only inferior to mighty ones of the same level, who were famous for their movement techniques. Lu Cheng's ears were filled with Buddhist chants, so loud that even the apathetic could hear them. He slowed down his steps, but fortunately, he had already formed his ice heart while he was retreating, so he could calmly watch the cracks appearing on the crystal-clear lake. At this juncture, his ears seemed to be as flexible as his limbs. They extended forward and covered himself. In his mind, he outlined the forwarding formula, suppressing the fear and epiphany. While doing this, he relaxed his control over the Emperor Yen force in his body, allowing it to explode on its own. Under a certain guidance, it turned into a stream of air that pushed his body to the left. Then, he twisted his waist and turned his back, striding forward and making turns. Ji Hai's lotus steps, 8 notes accompanying each step, changed directions with Lu Cheng. He followed Lu Cheng's trajectory closely, not letting the distance widen. This battle is more advantageous to me. What is Ji Hai thinking? Lu Cheng was puzzled. However, he couldn't divert his attention to figure out what Ji Hai was thinking while he was moving at high speed. Moreover, he didn't smell any dangerous scent. However, this also made him temporarily abandon the idea of looking for an opportunity to close in and attack, ignoring the word entanglement of wandering and tangling. Bang bang bang. Rumble, 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 rumble. The sound of thunder, Buddha's voice, and lion's roar reverberated in the limestone square, creating clouds of air. Lu Cheng and Ji Hai, one running and one chasing, advanced at high speed and made turns continuously. This was a lesson for the martial artists watching the match. The arena was only so big, so Lu Cheng couldn't make the distance between the two sides widen instead of narrowing it. He had to change directions several times to fly past his opponent and turn to the other side. Otherwise, he would leave the arena and automatically admit defeat. Of course, this was always within the safe range that he had set. Just as another similar turn of events occurred, he suddenly heard a solemn Buddhist voice in his ears. Ba. Ba sound? Is Ji Hai crazy? Lu Cheng was shocked. He understood that Ji Hai was using the ba sound to temporarily raise his level and get closer to the forbidden zone. After getting closer to the forbidden zone, Akala was equivalent to Vairocana. However, the problem is that I haven't come into contact with him. No matter how strong Vairocana body is, it's useless if it can't hit me. Isn't he afraid that I'll drag out the effects of Vairocana body until the effects wear off? Or is he trying to catch up to me with the speed of Vairocana body? But if that's the case, I can wait for him to exhaust himself. I can use tilting northwest sky, sinking southeast earth to deal a fatal blow to him, who is greatly drained from his level recovery. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Lu Cheng didn't hesitate. He outlined the attainment formula in his mind. Light blue flames gushed out from his feet as he attempted to escape and make Ji Hai's Vairocana body eat dust. After the ba sound, Ji Hai's aura surged. The surface of his body shone with a pure greenish-black luster until it was colorless. It was as though he was made of light. Looking at Lu Cheng's retreating figure, he didn't chase after him. Instead, he seized the fleeting opportunity and used Vairocana body to execute all the 6 syllables of Sanskrit mantra. Wang. Ma. Ni. Ba. Mi. Bang. These 6 words didn't ring out one by one. Instead, they appeared in the air to the left at the same time. In Lu Cheng's ears, up, down, left, right, front, back, the airflow vibrated. The Buddha's voice rolled and merged into one sound. Wang. Ma. Ni. Ba. Mi. Bang. The surrounding Buddha's sarira glow from the pagodas thickened like syrup. Lu Cheng was like a fly caught in it. His movements slowed and his speed decreased as he was suppressed. A fleshy palm shone with boundless radiance. It extended its fingers and pressed down clearly. It seemed slow, but it solidified the surroundings. To think that the 6 syllables of Sanskrit mantra combined with Buddha's sarira would have such an effect. You wouldn't be able to tell just by watching the video. Lu Cheng understood that this was mostly a mental effect. He made a force concentration, moved the stars, and outlined the fighting formula. There's still time. Ji Hai is still a distance away from me. I can't be fooled by appearances and react hastily. At this moment, Lu Cheng didn't use the complete 9 syllables formula. It was mainly to increase his mental strength, weaken the enemy, and shake off the influence. It couldn't replace explosive power or reaction. If he used it, he would have to rely on the fighting formula to break free from the restraints. Then, he would have to face or dodge Vairocana's palm head-on. Obviously, he couldn't do that with the time he had. Bam, bam, bam. Lu Cheng's body expanded. His bones cracked, his muscles bulged, and his veins bulged. He forcefully tore apart the viscous Buddha's aura, causing it to explode. Just as he regained his freedom, Vairocana's Buddha's palm approached. He forced himself to calm down. Based on his premonition of danger and judgment of the enemy, he prepared in an orderly manner. After a short moment of silence, his eyes deepened. He raised his arm and clenched his right hand. His palm seemed to contain a dark and boundless starry sky. Tilting northwest sky, sinking southeast earth. Without a sound, he turned his palm and pushed it diagonally towards the descending Buddha's palm. That was where he felt the most danger. Boom! The Vairocana was like tempered glass. It shattered but didn't shatter. The illusions around it were torn apart by streaks of darkness. The Buddha's realm was filled with the will of great destruction. It clustered around the tiny palm and blocked the gigantic Buddha's aura. Amidst the earth-shattering noise, the Vairocana that filled the sky collapsed, revealing Zhi Hai's figure once again. Lu Qing staggered backward. Every step he took left deep footprints and fresh blood spurting out of his mouth. His right arm was trembling, his palm was shaking, and his center of gravity was wobbly. He almost lost it. Coupled with the remnants of his previous injuries, his injuries weren't light. Zhi Hai mustered his remaining strength. Under the illumination of the remaining Saraira Buddha's aura, he maintained the radiant Vairocana form. Taking a step forward, he tightened his ankles, knees, waist, and the muscles that connected them like a maharaga. He struck his palm towards Lu Qing, releasing a pure and boundless light. The first thought that came to Lu Cheng's mind was to detonate Emperor Yen and dodge horizontally. However, he quickly suppressed the thought, which was most likely too late. Lowering his waist, he steadied his body, drew back his qi and blood, and once again drew the fighting formula. The fighting formula combined with the force of the Dan. Bam! His fist, propelled by his bulging body and bulging muscles, punched towards Zhi Hai's palm. Boom! The light dissipated and quickly dimmed. Zhi Hai paused, and Lu Cheng was sent flying backwards. It was as though time had stopped at this moment. While Lu Cheng was inhaling in mid-air to alleviate the negative effects, suppress his injuries, and regain his balance, the Wisdom King, Zhi Hai ignored the drop in his aura. His feet moved like a lotus flower, forcing Lu Cheng to move a few meters to the side using his Dan Qi. Then, he pounced forward and closed in on Lu Cheng. Bam! His fist glowed with a faint golden light as it went straight for Lu Cheng's head. Lu Cheng raised his right arm and blocked. Just as he blocked, his left fist shot out in an attempt to counterattack. His fist went straight for Zhi Hai's temple. He wanted to seize this moment to force Zhi Hai to switch from offense to defense. However, Zhi Hai merely tilted his head to avoid the attack. His other fist, which was heading for Lu Cheng's abdomen, didn't slow down at all. At this moment, Lu Cheng's hastily gathered Emperor Yen force exploded internally, changing the position of his palm. He extended his 5 fingers and grabbed at Zhi Hai's eyeballs, ignoring the incoming attack on his abdomen. Zhi Hai suddenly bulged his neck and pulled his cervical vertebrae, raising his head slightly. His opponent's fingers dug into his eye bags. Clang! Lu Cheng felt as though he had hit metal. All he could do was create a few cracks. However, with the change in direction of his palm, he tilted his body slightly and kicked Zhi Hai's elbow with his right leg. Zhi Hai's fist flew upwards and missed his chest. Bam! 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 Zhi Hai took advantage of the situation to launch a ferocious and demonic attack. His palms, punches, and kicks all pinned his opponent to the ground. At this moment, Lu Qing finally understood why Zhi Hai had used the boss syllables without any regard for energy consumption to recreate the Vairocana body, forcing him to fight head-on. When both parties were left with little HP, once they entered an intense melee battle, the immovable Wisdom King, who had the weakening effect of invincible Vajra, had the advantage. Zhi Hai only had to worry about a few vital points, unlike Lu Qing, who had to worry about everything. As for the combination of enemy heart-freezing move and God above head, Lu Qing could use Thought Steal to counter it. In other words, Lu Qing had been pulled into Zhi Hai's domain, where he could best utilize his experience. Gradually falling into a passive defense, Lu Qing wasn't willing to wait for death. He secretly circulated his qi and blood to stimulate his body and used the simplified fighting formula. Bam! After blocking Zhi Hai's fist with his arm, he suddenly exerted force. With a flip and a fling, he wanted to push Zhi Hai away and increase the distance between them. At this moment, Zhi Hai's fingers shot out and grabbed Lu Cheng's forearm. Following which, his arm was visibly elongated as his body moved backwards. His joints and tendons creaked simultaneously. There was even a jarring sound of bones grinding against each other and a feeling of dislocation. He held on tightly and didn't let go. Using his arm as a spring, he pulled it back and raised both his legs, kicking towards Ji Hai's abdomen. Lu Qing didn't have time to turn to the side. He could only form a fist with his other hand and transform it into a hammer. Bam! As he hammered, he turned to the side. Ji Hai's right leg, which he had just hammered, was already diagonally facing Ji Hai, causing Ji Hai's follow-up left leg to miss. Before Lu Qing could catch his breath, Ji Hai used his palm as a fulcrum and swung his waist forward. His bald head, which glowed a bluish-black, smashed into Lu Qing's face like a cannonball. Iron head of the Akala Wisdom King. A rock against an egg. Lu Qing's pupils shrank. He took a deep breath and curled his body into a ball. Half of it was a force concentration, and the other half was a headbutt. This was his only choice at the moment. Bam! Ji Hai's forehead broke through the air flow. His other hand struck out silently and coincidentally stopped at the side of Lu Qing's head. For this attack, he started with his right fist, then his legs, then his head, and finally his left hand. He used almost every part of his body before finally succeeding. Lu Qing's Dan Qi exploded, but he wasn't able to expand his head enough to withstand the attack. He could only take advantage of the momentum to stand up. From afar, the referee raised his right hand and announced loudly, "Round 3, Ji Hai of Supreme Class wins." Chapter 707. This home field advantage is way too strong, Lu Qing couldn't help but mutter to himself when he heard the referee's announcement. If not for that, Ji Hai's Vairocana body wouldn't have lasted that long. The full version of the 6-syllable Sanskrit mantra wouldn't have had such ridiculous effects either. More importantly, the pagoda where the relics were placed was outside the arena. With the protection of the eminent monks, the martial artist in the away match wouldn't have been able to destroy it. He could only hope that his opponent would exhaust him. Amidst these thoughts, Lu Qing took a deep breath and suppressed the resentment and unwillingness in his heart. It wasn't the attitude of a true martial artist to blame the environment and other factors for his failure instead of finding fault with himself. Besides, it was a tradition for top-tier professional matches to have home field advantage. Didn't he take advantage of this when he defeated god-slaying saber Lu Yongyuan in the previous round? The pagoda Saraira at Daxing Temple wasn't added at the last minute. It had been there for many years. It was his own fault for not being able to see through the phenomenon and deduce the possible anomalies from the videos and experiences. Phew. Lu Qing exhaled and saluted the Wisdom King, Ji Hai, who had retracted his fists and legs. At that moment, his heart skipped a beat as he recalled Ji Hai's thought steal. Even though it's only at initial mastery, I didn't try to hide it. Could he have heard my thoughts? *T, will he think I'm a sore loser? This is so King embarrassing. Lu Qing lifted his gaze and looked into Ji Hai's eyes. He tried to analyze if Ji Hai had heard his thoughts through the window of his soul. His eyes were as pure as a child's. There wasn't the slightest bit of distraction in them. It seems like he won't use thought steal unless it's a battle. Lu Qing heaved a sigh of relief. He turned around and walked to the edge of the limestone square. Ji Hai seized the opportunity to absorb the remaining luster, recovering as much as he could. Step by step, Lu Qing couldn't help but replay the battle. He had a deeper understanding of why Ji Hai was able to obtain the King and Supreme Class titles. Long-range attacks were useless against him, and neither was close-range combat. If he had formed 5 flames and used his advantage as a cannon to attack from afar, Ji Hai wouldn't have had to dodge. All he had to do was block his Achilles heel and use unshaken body of the Wisdom King. At the very least, he would have to combine 3 flames into one to hurt him. However, Ji Hai wasn't blind and didn't have mental senses. How could he not avoid such a situation? No matter how strong Lu Qing was, he couldn't keep using 3 flames into one and 5 flames as attacks. In close-range combat, thought Steel would be able to counter the combination of enemy heart-freezing move and all-seeing God. Other than his ability to sense danger, Lu Qing was at a disadvantage in terms of prediction. His evasive maneuvers could be easily seen through. As for strength, speed, defense, and tolerance to negative effects, they were Ji Hai's forte. Ji Hai could use brute force to win, but Lu Qing had to be cautious. A simplified form of physical invulnerability, internal explosion, had to be hit at an important spot to cause some damage after penetrating the opponent's body. The more advanced version, Golden Godly Flames, was more effective, but it required more preparation. Ji Hai wasn't a wooden block waiting to be hit. He could sense it with thought steel and make the right response. For example, he could hide the Buddha's light to dispel the flames that had entered his body. It's close to impossible to counter. Lu Qing sighed. He knew that there was only one most effective way to deal with Wisdom King. That was to use a combination of close-range and long-range attacks. First, he would widen the distance and look for an opportunity. Then, he would come up with a plan and turn it into an instinctive reaction. Next, he would close in and launch a round of frenzied attacks. If he didn't succeed, he would repeat the process and patiently wear him down until the end of time. Of course, this was the best method for normal physical invulnerability experts, but not for perverts. The Dragon King had used the penetrative attack of the Golden Godly Flames and his own terrifying strength to push the fire-like invasion technique forward. He didn't give Ji Hai the chance to use the 6-syllable Sanskrit mantra. Even if Ji Hai could hear it, he wouldn't be able to escape. He wouldn't be able to find a way to counterattack and would be forced to die. However, at the Dragon King's level, thought steel of lesser mastery shouldn't have much of an effect. It's a pity I haven't reached that level yet. Lu Qing shook his head slightly. He stepped out of the limestone square and saw Lu Yen walking towards him. At this moment, all sorts of discussions were going on online. There's still a gap. It seems impossible for Lu Qing to get a title in 2 years. That's the gap between him and the title holders. I'm referring to the experts who have won titles in recent years, not including the half-crippled warrior sage or the god-slaying saber who has a habit of failing miserably. Poison Milk Hierarch thinks Lu Qing will get a title in 2 or 3 years. What a poison milk, can't he reflect curses? How can we explain metaphysics? Hands up. I don't think the gap is big. Yeah. Usually, the Wisdom King's Vairocana body wouldn't be able to last that long. It would be more exhausting too. He has a clear home field advantage. But Elder Tang had a match with Empress Luo before, even if she was at her lowest. Then we're even. Lu Qing didn't lose that easily, right? He almost drained the Wisdom King. There's a gap between them, but it's definitely not that big. Words aren't proof. Neither can convince the other with just the keyboard. Let's wait for them to fight one-on-one. The new Warrior Sage Battles official competition is in May. I'm racking my brains to think of a title for Lu Qing. Looks like I don't have to rush. Amidst the commotion, the 4th match began. Lu Yen took advantage of the fact that the Wisdom King, Ji Hai, was at the end of his rope to imitate the Dragon King. However, Ji Hai's unshaken body of the Wisdom King once again refreshed everyone's understanding of him. Despite being at a disadvantage in many aspects, he held on for more than 3 minutes. During that time, he took 5 Golden Godly Flames and 16 internal explosions before collapsing to the ground. He even managed to injure Lu Yen, which made many people exclaim, "So F** King tough." As expected of a supreme-class expert. Lu Qing exclaimed as he held his phone. In the 5th match, Lu Yen faced the living Buddha, Shi Shan. Their battle seemed ordinary, but Lu Qing knew that their mental battle would be exceptionally exciting. Unfortunately, less than 1/10 of the audience was able to see it, with only a few special effects. During this process, Lu Yen was at a disadvantage a few times. He showed signs of turning the tables several times, but in the end, he was defeated. In terms of experience, the living Buddha, who had inherited the wisdom of countless lifetimes, wasn't targeting anyone. The competition came to an end. The Longhu Club, who attempted to defend their title as the world's #1, lost in the second round. In front of the TV screen, the Dragon King, Chen Qitao, who had already left the hospital and returned home, put down the remote control with a straight face. After returning to the club, Lu Qing calmed himself down and focused on training again. The next day, he went to the conference room after breakfast. He planned to review the battle at Daxing Temple with Empress Luo, the coach, and Guijie. He wanted to sum up his experience and find his own flaws. Before he entered, he felt the air was heavy and solemn. There was a certain pressure that shook his soul. SSS. Lu Qing took a deep breath and entered. He saw the Dragon King, whom he hadn't seen in a long time, standing at the head of the conference room. He was dressed in navy blue and had an intimidating aura. At this moment, other than the Dragon King, only Lu Qing and Guijie were present. Chen Qitao nodded with his hands behind his back. He said calmly, "You guys still need more training." Ugh. Lu Qing suddenly felt a stinging sensation at the corner of his mouth. After Chen Qitao's comeback, the Longhu Club won consecutive victories. Lu Yan was no longer the main force, which gave Lu Qing more opportunities to play. At the end of March and beginning of April, the finals of the Battle of the Kings began as scheduled. This time, the Dragon King successfully defended his title. Other than that, there weren't many professional matches in April. The focus was on the final round of the National University Martial Arts Competitions, which was held in Songqing this year. The organizers planned to invite the team that had climbed out of the bottom of the valley and won the championship. It was also the team that could best represent Songqing's image to attend the opening ceremony as a guest. Lu Qing received a call about this. How infuriating. Why can't it coincide with spring break? Yenjika said, "Qing, you're representing 3 people now." Huh? Lu Qing sent a confused expression. What do you mean by 3 people? Did I buy fake products during spring break? You're representing yourself, me, and my brother. Yenjika replied, "You're representing yourself. Your brother isn't going?" Lu Qing wiped his forehead. I don't think he likes such lively activities. I didn't ask. Why don't you go and verify? Yenjika suddenly felt unconfident. Chapter 708. Verify? Lu Qing opened his contact list and was about to give Lin Ke a call. Just as he found the entry of brother-in-law, his fingers suddenly paused. Back then, they had won the championship together. Now, one of them was a physical invulnerability expert, while the other was still at the inhuman stage. Furthermore, they had to revisit old haunts and reminisce about the past. If it were me, I wouldn't go either. Just like what they said on the internet, who would go to the reunion 10 years later if they weren't doing well? Not to mention those with super high self-esteem. Lu Qing looked at his phone and nodded slightly. He felt that he could understand brother-in-law's mentality. Therefore, wouldn't it be blatantly boastful to make such a call? Let's use a more tactful method. Lu Qing opened the contact list interface and found Lin Ke's QQ. He wrote a message, "Are you going back to Songqing for the opening ceremony?" After clicking send, he didn't expect to receive an immediate reply. Brother-in-law was the kind of person who didn't show up for many years. Just as he was about to exit the interface and report to his wife, a beep sounded. Lin Ke replied, "Yes." Lu Qing was dumbfounded by this simple word. This is different from the standard answer, "Mate." Of course, he was too embarrassed to ask why. After thinking for a long time, he got rid of the feeling of being unable to reply. See you in Songqing." Lin Ke replied quickly, "Okay." At that time, the atmosphere was very cold. Lu Qing complained. He temporarily left the conversation with Lin Ke and found Yenjika. Wiping sweat in horror expression, "Your brother is going to," the girl first replied with an emoji of shock and then replied with an emoji of rolling her eyes, My brother still has feelings for Songqing University and the martial arts club. Although he didn't say it, I can see it. But his actions are still very honest. Lu Qing joked and then complained to his little fairy, "Is your brother always so cool and cold when chatting online? He always uses one word to dismiss me without a second word." "No, my brother is just used to using the simplest words. He doesn't say anything unnecessary, as long as he can express his meaning clearly," Yenjika said, rubbing her chin. "But that feeling of being cold and distant is very obvious," Lu Qing said, pretending to shiver. Yenjika replied with a dumbstruck expression, "My brother is like this all the time. It has nothing to do with chatting online." That's true." Lu Qing thought for a while and said, "Then I'll ask him a complicated question. Let's see if he can answer me in a few words." "What's the problem?" The girl was curious. "I want to ask him when he will arrive in Songcheng. I can't possibly use one word to express it clearly, can I?" Lu Qing replied with a smug expression. After a few seconds, he returned and sent a crying face emoji. My brother only used one word? How did he do it?" Yenjika's eyes sparkled, and her heart was full of curiosity. Lu Qing replied with a sluggish expression. "Your brother didn't say a single word this time. He took a screenshot of the flight information and threw it to me." Yenjika froze for a second, then laughed out loud and sent an emoji of pounding the ground madly. April 6, Songqing Xinghao Wanjing Hotel. Lu Qing was led to his room by the staff of the organizing committee who was in charge of receiving him. "Mr. Lu, there will be a luncheon tomorrow at 11:30 p.m. The opening ceremony will start at 7 p.m. A car will come to pick you up then," the organizing committee member reminded him respectfully. "Okay." Lu Qing nodded slightly and watched him leave. When the door was closed, he was no longer as reserved and mature as before. Holding his phone and smiling, he leisurely took pictures of the situation in the room from various angles and sent them to Yenjika. The organizing committee is quite generous with their money. It was 5 p.m. in Connecticut, and the girl was still asleep. After sending the pictures, Lu Qing planned to contact Talker and ask his teammates if they wanted to have a meal together. Just as he typed the first word, he felt something in his heart and looked at the door. A few seconds later, there was a rhythmic knock on the door. Lu Qing walked over with a smile and opened the door. It was indeed little Ming, who was dressed casually. "I was just about to look for you. Our hearts are connected." He made a joke. Kai Zhongming said disdainfully, "I knocked one by one. If anyone is here, I will invite them to a meal together." After saying that, heads popped out from behind him. There was Li Mao with a square face, Sun Jian and Lin Hua who were about to get married, He Zi, Wang Dali and Mu Jinmian who were still fit for this year's competition. In front of the opposite wall stood Lin Kei, who was dressed simply and neatly. He had the same short hair as before. He was still silent, as if nothing had changed. Kai Zhongming smiled and spread his hands. "Surprise. Surprise? Surprise your head. Do you think I'm blind? Do you think my mental senses are fake? Before you even knocked on the door, I already knew how many people were there and who they were." Lu Cheng's mouth twitched, and he expressed his disdain with his eyes. "Let's go. There is a restaurant nearby that is suitable for us to brag about." Kai Zhongming raised his chin and pointed in the direction of the elevator. "Okay." Lu Qing didn't dawdle. He took the things and closed the door. When he passed by Lin Kei, he took a good look at him and was relieved to find that his brother-in-law seemed to have recovered from the inhumane modification experiment. He was full of energy and his body was normal, but he didn't see much improvement. Anyway, according to Ku, it was a blessing in disguise. Lu Qing smiled and raised his right hand to Lin Kei, just like the prelude to the high five in the university martial arts competition. However, Lin Kei didn't move. Lu Qing felt that his brother-in-law was looking at him as if he was looking at a childish person. This is King embarrassing. Lu Qing was about to withdraw his hand with a hollow laugh when Lin Kei finally raised his hand and gave him a high five. Kai Zhongming stood aside and tried to hold back his laughter. Cheng, you didn't even give us a high five. I want to complain about the difference in treatment. Hey, since ancient times, only the newcomers laughed. Who has ever heard the old cry? You are full of drama. Lu Qing laughed and scolded him. He Zi, who was behind them, focused on the previous scene. She took out a pen and paper from her backpack but couldn't draw anything for a long time. You want to draw a little yellow rabbit? Wang Dali couldn't help but distance himself from her. He Zi nodded seriously and answered in a low voice, I've already finished a 500,000-word novel in my mind. 10 minutes later, Lu Qing looked around in shock and said to Kai Zongming in a bad mood, Is this what you mean by a restaurant that suits us? What kind of eyes would treat a food stall as a restaurant? Kai Zongming laughed and said, This is called remembering the bitterness and thinking of the sweetness. Plus, when we gather together, there will be a lot of lamenting about the past. The private room doesn't feel grounded enough. This is better. No one will stop you even if you sing with a beer bottle. I do miss the food stall in Songcheng. Li Mao said in a reminiscing tone. Actually, so do I, Lu Qing agreed silently. That was the most unforgettable period of his life. After finding a remote place to set up the table, Kai Zongming, as usual, was busy ordering food and drinks. When he was done, he sat beside Lu Qing and patted Li Mao's shoulder. Senior Li Mao, you're chubby now. You're doing well. Not bad, not bad. Li Mao said humbly. Kai Zongming smiled and said, I heard you're the company's security supervisor now. Talker knows everyone's current situation very well. In this aspect, I'm far behind him. Some guys are just natural socializers. Lu Qing listened with a smile and criticized Little Ming in his heart. I'm just the head of the security department. Li Mao laughed at himself. On the other side, Sun Jian muttered, Good thing you're not a concierge. Ouch, Lin Hua pinched his thigh. Li Mao pretended not to hear and continued the topic, I went to Huahai to do security training before. Sigh, I realized that I didn't use the major I studied in university at all. Not even a little. I feel like I've wasted my life. He couldn't help but joke. How is this a waste of time? You didn't even date in university. Kai Zongming said sarcastically. A few people present felt like they had been shot in the knee. After he got everyone's attention, he picked up the cup and knocked on the table with the bottom of the cup. Come, cheers. To Songqing University Martial Arts Club, to our champion, to our burning passion, to our youth, to our reunion after so long. Damn, you're so eloquent. You're so different after becoming a broadcaster. Lu Qing said to Little Ming. Then he knocked on the table and picked up the cup. To our youth, to our reunion. To our youth, to our reunion. Li Mao, Sun Jian and the others did the same thing and shouted the same words. Even Lin Ke, who was always aloof, knocked on the cup and picked it up. Kai Zongming glanced at Lu Qing and shouted again, to the champion. After shouting, he raised his head and gulped down the entire bottle. To the champion. His voice echoed as if it was yesterday. Chapter 709. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, they reminisced about the past. It wasn't until 9:00 that the original Songqing University Martial Arts Club members returned to their hotel. Along the way, Li Mao, Sun Jian, and the others, who were already drunk, sang and sang at the top of their lungs. Sometimes, they giggled and chattered non-stop. This drunkard. Lin Hua kicked Sun Jian's calf in annoyance. Kai Zongming also drank a lot. He looked back with a smile and found that the alley was unusually deserted. The scattered pedestrians were scared by the drunkards and quickly disappeared in both directions. An idea came to him, and his eyes flashed with excitement. He stuttered and said to Lu Qing, Qing, come, let's practice. Let me see the strength of a physical invulnerability expert. Lu Qing was speechless for a moment. After a long time, he laughed and said, Talker, you've drunk 2 tails of horse piss. Don't you know how to spell the word death? Drinking can give you courage, but it's not to the extent of flying, right? You bastard, can't you wait for me to finish my sentence? It's rare to have a physical invulnerability expert around me. I want to see how much stronger a physical invulnerability expert is compared to us. Little Ming explained with a sober mind. Let's make it clear. No fire, no ice, no force. No unique skills. And no hitting my face. Yo, you're only thinking about your head and not your butt? Lu Qing couldn't help but tease him. Tomorrow, we're going to participate in the opening ceremony. It's going to be broadcasted. Kai Zhongming wiped his hair. Lu Qing nodded seriously. That's true. If there are bruises or hematoma on your face, it won't be good if millions of people see it. But, you can't just focus on your face. It's not a good idea to be pushed up in a wheelchair, right? You've been wanting to hit me for a long time, haven't you? Kai Zhongming gasped. Yes. It wasn't Lu Qing who answered. It was the single guys, sober or drunk. A long-awaited crosstalk performance. He muttered to herself. After joking around for a while, Lu Qing, reluctantly, stood in the middle of the alley under the expectation of Lin Hua and the others. Kai Zhongming took a deep breath, suppressed his drunkenness, and steadied his steps. He acted as the temporary referee. She blew the whistle and sets out. Begin. Kai Zhongming bent his back and staggered his steps forward. His center of gravity swayed back and forth, making it difficult for others to determine where his attack would land. Just as his spine sprung and he was about to throw a punch, he noticed that Lu Qing had lifted his right leg and extended it diagonally, waiting in the air. If things had gone according to plan, I would have tripped and fallen flat on my face. Kai Zhongming's eyes turned cold, and he hurriedly stopped his forward momentum. At this moment, Lu Qing withdrew his right foot and placed his left fist on his waist. Kai Zhongming, who had forcefully changed his direction and hadn't had time to catch his breath, only felt that his opponent's fist was about to burst out. The moment he slowed down and stopped, he couldn't dodge, and he couldn't dodge. He didn't have the burden of being an idol, so he immediately rolled to the side. Lu Qing watched with a smile and didn't chase after him. Bang! Kai Zhongming rolled too quickly and hit a shared bicycle. Crazy. A cyclist who was passing by almost lost his balance. He staggered forward while cursing. How old are you? Still playing a game of rolling on the ground. After cursing, he realized that there were a few drunkards around him. He didn't dare to make a sound, so he stepped on the pedals and hurriedly left. I won't lower myself to the level of a drunkard. You lost, right? Lu Qing put his hands in his pockets and smiled at Little Ming. Kai Zhongming was already a little tipsy, so he was a little dizzy from the collision. However, after the shock, he regained his ability to speak fluently. He didn't want to lose with his words. You can't call a deer a horse and turn it upside down. Who said that you lose when you hit a bicycle during a martial arts competition? As a martial artist, it's basic to be observant and alert, said Lu Qing calmly. Kai Zhongming did a carp flip and stood up. Suddenly, he hissed. You didn't move from the beginning to the end. Did he win with just a pose? It's a matter of 2 or 3 moves. What do you mean from the beginning to the end? Lu Qing curled his lips in disdain. Kai Zhongming didn't mind his disdain. He asked curiously, is this the prediction ability of the combination of enemy heart freezing move and God above head? You know it well. Lu Qing nodded, slightly surprised. Nonsense. As the future king of martial arts competition commentary, you still have to do the basics. This is called loving what you do. Kai Zhongming clicked his tongue. At this moment, Wang Dali asked coldly, who's Xing Yi? Everyone burst into laughter. Only Lin Ke didn't react. Maybe he thought the joke was too old, or maybe he didn't understand. After laughing, Li Mao, who was obviously drunk, stepped forward. His eyes lit up. Me too, I'll try. Me too. Me too. He Z, Wang Dali, and the rest raised their hands. Then we'll take turns. Lu Qing shook his head. With the goal of forcing him to move, Li Mao, Sun Jian, Lin Hua, and the rest took turns. However, they all failed miserably. Bam! He Z dodged to the side and used force concentration to punch Lu Cheng's head. Suddenly, she saw nothing in front of her. Lu Qing lowered his body and squatted in a horse stance. She didn't know when his fist reached out and stopped in front of her abdomen. You can attack fiercely, but you can't break your will. You need to have room for change. Lu Qing stood up slowly and gave her some advice. As a dance stage martial artist, He Z was the last to take the stage. He Z was deep in thought. Just as she was about to ask another question, she saw another person stand out. It was Lin Ke, who was still expressionless. Damn, brother-in-law, you're here too. Lu Qing thought, half surprised and half expectant. There's a good show to watch. He Z retreated to the edge. She hated that she didn't have a bag of popcorn. Li Mao and the rest had similar expressions. Hey, is this the Municipal Administration Bureau? There are 2 people here who want to tear down the street. If it weren't for Lin Ke, Kai Zongming would have already complained. Now, he could only say it in his heart. Lin Ke didn't say anything. He arched his body slightly and the air around him became heavy. Begin. He Z almost forgot her duty. Bam! The concrete under Lin Ke's feet shook violently. Like a meteor, he flashed in front of Lu Qing in a flash. There was a strong wind behind him. Lu Qing put out his right palm in advance and clenched his fingers, firmly grasping his brother-in-law's fist. He was about to shake off Lin Ke's accumulated strength when he felt the small muscles on his fist squirming strangely as if they had a life of their own. They forcibly broke free from Lu Cheng's grasp. Bam! 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 Lin Ke stepped forward and threw a series of cannon punches. The lights of the surrounding street lights were distorted as if there were invisible hands pulling them. Lu Qing felt like he was underwater and the pressure on his body was getting stronger and stronger. However, this level of influence had almost no effect on him. He twisted his waist and spread his arms, tearing off layer after layer of adhesive. Bam! Bam! Lin Ke's chain of attacks was tight. His every punch and kick seemed to have been precisely measured. But no matter how hard he tried, Lu Qing was able to defend himself without directly using his supernatural ability. He didn't even move half a step. After a few seconds, Lin Ke retracted his fist and retreated. There weren't many cracks on the ground. Both parties had control. Encountering gods in the void, self-reflection? Lu Qing asked in delight. Brother-in-law has reached this level so quickly? Is this a blessing in disguise? Lin Ke nodded slightly and gave an affirmative answer. Based on the condition of your body, you're at the peak of the inhuman stage. The next step is to search for the path of physical invulnerability, said Lu Qing happily for his brother-in-law. Lin Ke's gaze didn't change. He seemed to be talking to himself. I'll return to the war-torn zones next month. Using life and death as a training ground? Lu Qing nodded slowly and asked in confirmation. Lin Ke shook his head. He put his hands in his pockets and walked towards the exit of the alley. Then, he answered in a low and calm voice, the answer I want is there. Back at the hotel and entering the elevator, Lu Qing, who was still pondering the true meaning of brother-in-law's words, decided to give up. He was about to ask his wife when He Z came over and smiled. Senior, Shaoling forwarded an email to you. It's about an interview program. Eternal Nightfall? Lu Qing thought for a few seconds. She went to the TV station for an internship? Yeah. She majored in editing and directing. Reporter Shu recommended her to the provincial TV station for an internship. She has a good relationship with reporter Shu. This interview program was also arranged by reporter Shu, explained He Z. Alright, I'll check the email. But I don't remember her forwarding it to me, said Lu Qing, recalling the email he had just checked. He fell silent for a moment. Then, she twitched her mouth and said, with her IQ, maybe she really did forward it to the wrong person. You should check again. At this moment, the elevator arrived. Lu Qing logged into his mailbox as he stepped out. He did see a new email, but the sender's name was completely different from Yan Xiaoling's. Lu Qing GK. Is this it? Lu Qing showed it to He with uncertainty. He was stunned for a moment. Then, she called Yan Xiaoling and asked directly, what's the signature on your email? It's... Yan Xiaoling suddenly fell silent. Then, she shook her head like a rattledrum. It's not me, it's not me, it's not me. Oh no, I forgot to change the signature of my middle school student. Senior saw it, he saw it. If it's not you, then who sent that email? He's face twitched obviously. I don't know. Yan Xiaoling answered without hesitation. P.S. I have something to do in the afternoon. The chapter in the evening will be late, around 9 o'clock. Chapter 710. With Lu Cheng's excellent hearing, he could hear the conversation between He and Yan Xiaoling clearly. He almost laughed out loud. Some people were walking comedians, while others were walking comedians. He nodded calmly and said, then I'll go back and take a look at the contents of the email. I'll think about it before giving you an answer. Sorry to trouble you, senior. He smiled naturally. After entering the room, Lu Qing put aside the email and sent a message to Yan Jika. What do you think your brother means? The girl replied very quickly. Fingers clasped under chin expression, : It should be a new goal and new motivation. Back then, he practiced martial arts crazily to make up for his uncle's regret and lead Songqing University Martial Arts Club to win the championship. For this, he was even willing to pay any price. After achieving his goal, perhaps he lacked motivation. That's my guess. After all, there are almost no people who want to become stronger purely from martial arts. Even if there are, they need other motivations. She said a lot in one breath. Of course, Lu Qing agreed. Yeah, Dragon King is considered to be relatively pure. However, he still needs someone as strong as Warrior Sage to reach his current level. My brother probably found a new meaning in life in the war-torn areas. Yeah, that's most likely the case. Yan Jika nodded slowly. That's not bad. Lu Qing recalled what he had seen and heard in the past and heaved a sigh of relief. Wait until your brother makes the great leap and becomes a physical invulnerability expert. Even in the war-torn areas, he won't be in too much danger. As the god of plagues and calamities, you have no right to say that. Yan Jika sat blankly. Lu Qing could only cover his face and sigh. The next day at 11 a.m., the cars sent by the organizing committee arrived punctually at the main entrance of the hotel. Whether it was intentional or not, Lu Qing was treated alone and sat in a car by himself. The luncheon was held at the historic Chao Mu Lu in Songqing. It was a buffet style. As soon as he stepped into the main hall, Lu Qing saw the president of the University Martial Arts Federation, Mr. Fang Jinyu, the principal of Songqing University, his teacher's good friend, Mr. Dong, whose full name was unknown, and the mayor of Songqing University. You're a good student of Songqing University is here. The mayor of Songqing pointed at Lu Qing and smiled at Principal Dong. Lu Qing and the rest stepped forward and greeted, hello, Principal Dong. Then, they greeted Mr. Fang Jinyu and the others separately. No matter what, they still had to be polite. After some pleasantries, Principal Dong looked at Lu Qing and chuckled. Your master often says in front of me that he wants to train you, give you setbacks, and give you a failed education, but it seems that he has never succeeded. What the hell? Master actually has such a sinister mind. Lu Qing had never expected this. He was both surprised and amused at the same time. However, his expression did not change. He only smiled and defended his master's dignity. Headmaster Dong, you can't say that. My most important step indeed came from a setback. Headmaster Dong smiled and nodded. Jiang Wo has taken in a good disciple. In Moshang City, Geezer Shi was happily drinking wine and listening to a play. Suddenly, a sentence flashed past his ears. Life is the most bitter of all. Bad friends, bad disciples. Geezer Shi smacked his lips and nodded to himself. That makes a lot of sense. On the topic of his master, Lu Qing, Headmaster Dong, and the other middle-aged and elderly people started chatting. Before they knew it, they had formed a circle, and from time to time, they would receive drinks, cakes, and snacks from the waiters passing by. I'll go get some food first. After a while, Lu Qing heard his stomach rumbling softly. He retreated with a smile. At this time, he found that some of Kai Zongming and the others were eating, some were talking to the directors of the local martialist association, the coaches and teachers of other universities, and some were chatting with other guests and contestant representatives. Everyone had their own circle. Only Lin Kei was standing at the edge of the balcony with a tray in hand. He closed the door to the balcony, isolating himself from the hustle and bustle of the place. As expected of a man who is not affected by the environment. Lu Qing laughed and picked up the food. He planned to fill a plate and then go to the balcony to chat with his brother-in-law about the war-torn zones. He was about to continue when a familiar figure appeared in front of him. It was reporter Shu Rui, wearing an evening gown that exposed her fair shoulders. What a coincidence. Lu Qing casually greeted her. Shu Rui smiled and said, "It's not really a coincidence. I came all the way here from Huahai. I even asked Xiaoling to forward an email to you. You're not in Songqing?" Lu Qing asked, slightly surprised. She seemed to be right. Shu Rui wrinkled her nose and said, "Yeah, I went there on impulse. Huahai TV is one of the biggest channels in the country." Lu Qing didn't ask further. He changed the topic and said, "I've seen your program proposal. It's pretty interesting. But are you sure you want me?" The program Shu Rui wanted to do was called Walking into the Physical Invulnerability Stage. It wasn't limited to competitions, battles, interviews, and chats. Instead, it would show the daily lives of physical invulnerability experts. It would allow the audience to see how the experts lived their lives every day. For most people, this was a topic that was very interesting and could arouse curiosity. Just like in ancient times, farmers would imagine that the emperor used a golden carrying pole. The audience could also use this to fulfill their dreams of physical invulnerability. Why do you say that? I think you're great. You had the bearing of a great general when you were interviewed. Shu Rui frowned, puzzled. What I mean is that my daily life is boring, Lu Qing answered half honestly and half self-deprecatingly. No, trust me. People nowadays are so empty that they want to watch others eat and sleep. Not to mention the daily life of a physical invulnerability expert. No matter how boring it is, there will be people watching. Shu Rui waved her hand confidently. Then she said earnestly, I plan to find 10 physical invulnerability experts in the first season. The TV station does have some connections, but I'm afraid that other experts won't be willing to accept because they think I'm unreliable. If you're the model, they won't be so resistant when they see that Lu Qing is also on the show. Lu Qing pondered for a moment and said, all right. Anyway, I've reminded you. You can contact the Longhu External Affairs team and ask them to find my assistant. Okay. Shu Rui nodded excitedly. Then she smiled and said, well, find my assistant. You're acting like a big shot now. Lu Qing laughed and pointed to the balcony. I have something to do. I'll go over first. Shu Rui followed his finger and replied with a smile, okay. When Lu Qing turned around, she stood on her tiptoes and looked at the balcony. She muttered to herself, that king of awkward silence is here too. At 7:00 p.m., the opening ceremony of the new University Martial Arts Competition Finals. After Mr. Fang Jinyu, the president of the Federation, and Principal Dong of Songqing University finished their speeches, the host took a deep breath and raised her voice. Next, let's welcome a group of heavyweight guests. Let's welcome. Before she could finish her sentence, she was drowned out by the roar of the audience. Lu Cheng. Then there was another round of shouting. Lin K. The audience shouted one by one, just like when they introduced the team members on the home broadcast. In the end, they said in unison, Songqing University, Songqing University. Champion, champion. Backstage, Lu Cheng and the rest heard it. It was as if they had returned to the hot-blooded days of the past. Their bodies couldn't help but tremble slightly. You haven't forgotten us yet. Little Ming pretended to be calm and said. Are you happy? Are you touched? Lu Cheng asked in amusement. Kai Zhongming was silent for a few seconds, no longer as relaxed as before. He took a deep breath and said, touched. As soon as he said that, Lin Hua, He Zi and the rest couldn't help but cry out in a low voice. Songqing University, Songqing University. Champion, champion. Lu Cheng controlled his emotions and glanced at his brother-in-law, only to find that he had already looked to the side. They strode forward and came to the stage in a single file, which attracted more enthusiastic cheers. After calming down, the host smiled brightly and said, they can be said to be the most legendary team in the history of the university martial arts competition. It only took them 2 years to go from being at the bottom with no hope to winning the trophy. Now, there is still a legend among them. They already have a mighty one with physical invulnerability. Maybe there will be more in the future. They are the pride of Songqing and Songqing University. They are the champions 3 years ago, all the members of Songqing University Martial Arts Club. In the aftermath of the champion, the host walked to Lu Cheng and said with a smile, I'll interview them one by one. Lu Cheng, you are one of the most successful people in the university martial arts circle. You are the idol and role model of many people. What do you want to say to your juniors? Lu Cheng took the microphone and recalled for a few seconds. In this path, in addition to relying on one's own efforts, opportunities are also important. I don't want to dampen your enthusiasm. I just want to introduce the situation of the martial arts circle seriously. If you want to walk the path of martial arts, without good guidance, perseverance, and good martial arts, only 1 or 2 out of 10 people can hope to reach the professional 9th pin. Even if you have those, a large number of people will be eliminated. They can only use the amateur level as a stepping stone to get a job. They may have no problem with food and clothing, but there is not much difference between them and the others. When you reach the professional 9th pin, you can feel the transcendental feeling of a martial artist and show off your masculinity in front of girls. Your income is almost the middle class, but there is limited room for improvement unless you reach the Dan stage. From the professional 9th pin to the Dan stage, even if you have good martial arts, only 1 or 2 out of 10 people can reach the Dan stage. Beyond that, the inhuman stage is another hurdle, and those who can make the great leap are few and far between. This is the general situation. If you really want to walk this path, you should understand that you are most likely to reach the amateur 2nd or 3rd pin, 4th or 5th pin. If you don't have the cultural knowledge to reach the standard, you can only develop in a small city, which is definitely not what you expect. Okay, I've been long-winded for a long time. I'll say one last thing. Making a decision without thinking about anything is not courage, it is rashness. When you seriously consider the difficulties and how to deal with the future, you still do it without hesitation. That is a real warrior. A real martial artist. This is what I want to say. Chapter 7:11. To the audience, Lu Cheng's words didn't carry the color of dreams, glory, or passion they had expected. Instead, it was like a bucket of cold water that exposed the bare reality that many people didn't want to consider. The path of martial arts was cruel and hopeless most of the time. After such a description, the definition of a true martial artist and true warrior became more and more palpitating, admirable, and desirable. Although they might not be able to do it themselves, they would definitely worship those who could. Clap, clap, clap. At first, the applause was weak, sporadic, and scattered, then loud, surging, and orderly. Respect to a true warrior. Respect to a true martial artist. The host listened attentively and felt a little emotional. When the applause died down, she smiled at Lu Cheng and said, "Very sincere and honest words. I believe this is what you've experienced and heard on your journey. Thank you for your speech." At this point, she took advantage of the time and looked at Lin Kei beside her. "Lin Kei, what about you? What do you have to say to everyone?" Lin Kei's expression didn't change. His eyes were deep and indifferent. After a few seconds, he said, "Good luck." "And then?" "Don't tell me that's all." The host waited for a long time before realizing that there was no follow-up. She was both amused and surprised. After a while, she said, "Thank you. Thank you, Lin Kei, for your blessings. God damn it, good luck." No wonder he's the king of awkward silence. Shu Rui, who was sitting in the press box, hammered her thigh and tried her best not to laugh out loud. "Frankly speaking, it's so funny when I'm not the one interviewing Lin Kei." The host strengthened her mental state and turned to Kai Zongming. "As a former club president, what do you want to say to your juniors?" Little Ming took the microphone and said with a smile, "Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I'm the professional ninth pin with limited room for improvement and no future." Pfft. His humorous self-mockery attracted a lot of laughter. The atmosphere instantly became lively. Kai Zongming's mind was quick. He recalled the script in his mind and said without stuttering, "Fortunately, I didn't give up on classes while I was participating in the special training of the martial arts club. My grades weren't outstanding, but I didn't fail many subjects. Well, almost. Anyway, I successfully got my diploma and degree. Of course, my current job has nothing to do with my major. Talker, are you going to perform a stand-up comedy on the spot?" Lu Cheng, who was almost amused by the turn of events, cursed silently. Kai Zongming said with a smile, "That's not what I really want to say. To be able to do what I want to do the most in the last years of my life, to put my heart and soul into it, to endure the torture, and to give up my comfort, is something that I can remember for the rest of my life. It's a past that I can touch my chest and say I don't regret. While I'm still young, while I still have dreams, and while the pressure of life hasn't come yet, why not fight hard? If you don't try, how do you know you can't do it?" What followed was a normal speech. The host calmed down and thanked Little Ming sincerely. Then, he started interviewing Li Mao, Sun Jian, and the others one by one. At the end of this process, Lu Cheng and his team returned backstage amidst shouts of "Songqing University" and "Champion, champion" from the audience. "Talker, I thought you would carry on with your crosstalk to the end." Lu Cheng took out his phone and teased Little Ming. Kai Zongming curled his lips and said, "Do I look like the kind of person who talks big regardless of the situation?" "You do." He Zi, Wang Dali, and the others answered in unison. "I despise your hypocritical hearts." Kai Zongming made the shape of a gun with his hands and pointed downwards. Without waiting for the others to speak, he changed the topic. "Cheng, when did you become so eloquent? You can already speak at length. As the saying goes, preparedness leads to success, and unpreparedness leads to failure," replied Lu Cheng with a smile. At the same time, he took out a folded piece of paper from his pocket. "When I received the call from the organizing committee, I was thinking about what to say and how to say it. I specially made a draft and revised it a few times. He even rehearsed it in front of his little fairy. After that, he waited for Talker's exclamation. Instead, Kai Zongming said disdainfully, "You even made your own draft? The real big shots let their secretaries and assistants do it. At most, it's just a final review. You tell me, should I despise you or should I despise you?" "Get lost," replied Lu Cheng concisely. After the opening ceremony, everyone went back to their own places. It was like memories always had an end. On the third morning after returning to Huacheng, Lu Cheng saw Shu Rui and her team as soon as he stepped into the Longhu Club. Please bear with us for the next week. Shu Rui, who was no longer constrained by her professional attire, extended her hand with a smile. Lu Qing reached out and shook her hand. He nodded with a smile. Then let's start. Let's go to the place where I do my morning exercises. We'll discuss the details with my assistant. Okay, just pretend we don't exist. Shu Rui revealed her only dimple. After that, she gestured for the camera to slowly move from the scene outside to Lu Qing, who was walking slowly. The recording of the daily routine started now. At the same time, she deliberately said in a documentary tone, "The sky is still dark and the surroundings are quiet." Lu Qing has already arrived at the Longhu Club, just like every other day. This is the place where he does his morning exercises every day. You can clearly see traces of ice and fire. According to the staff of the Longhu Club, unless there is serious damage, it is usually repaired and replaced once a week. We can't show the details of his morning exercises. We can only film a few actions. This is the physical invulnerability restaurant that many friends and I are curious about. Clean, tidy, and quiet. That's my first impression. You can see that there are delicious breakfasts from all over the country. This is Guangnan's rice noodle roll. This is Juku's hot dry noodles. This is Huahai's pang pan. This is Beijing's soybean juice. Hey, who would like to drink this? See? This is the appetite of a physical invulnerability expert. I really don't understand how their stomachs can hold so much food. But looking at Lu Qing eating, I have a special appetite. I feel that everything is delicious. Even I'm hungry. This is the world-famous volcano laboratory. Okay, that's all we can film. The rest is confidential. And the room where Lu Qing trains is not a place where ordinary people can survive. Even if I could, the camera wouldn't be able to take it. 11 am. Lu Qing returned to his exclusive resting room. It's very spacious, even more spacious than my place. After filming the surroundings, Shu Rui sat on the single-seater sofa beside Lu Qing. She asked in a chatting tone, "Why did you choose this time to rest?" Lu Qing glanced at her and answered calmly, "It's a secret." "Are you possessed by Lin Ke?" Shu Rui was almost at a loss for words. Lu Qing smiled and said calmly, "I'm just kidding. This is the time I agreed to chat with my girlfriend." It was supposed to be a video call, but because Ku felt that it was too embarrassing to flirt in front of the camera, she had to cancel it this week. Of course, as someone who wasn't very thick-skinned, he also felt the same way. "I understand. She's studying abroad," Shu Rui said in realization. Lu Qing didn't hide the fact that he had a girlfriend at all, leaving no room for imagination. After that, Shu Rui stopped interviewing and returned the daily routine to Lu Qing. She didn't want to steal the limelight. Lu Qing picked up his phone and sent an emoji of covering his face and sighing. "It's so uncomfortable." "Who asked you to agree on a whim?" Gloating expression, Yenjika said. "And it's a beautiful reporter. I thought it would be similar to the martial arts club program she did in the past." Sighing expression, Lu Qing said, "After a few days, she'll understand that there's no value in filming me." "My daily life," Yenjika sent an emoji of covering her mouth and laughing. "That's not necessarily the case. You can gather your daily life outside of your daily life into this week. At least it will look richer. My daily life outside of my daily life is to check out the delicacies and interesting places, waiting for your inspection." Lu Qing gradually forgot that he was being filmed. His lips curled up into a smile. After a round of discussion, Yenjika sent an emoji of making the final decision. "Let's do that." A few days later, Shu Rui smelled the aroma of the salted crispy chicken. She was a little confused and amused. "Are we going to become a food show soon?" "Let's call it, the mighty one of physical invulnerability brings you to experience the delicacies of watching. Lu Qing recommends once a day." Lu Qing spread his hands and replied calmly, "This is my daily life. I hope other mighty ones with physical invulnerability are different from you." Shu Rui pretended to look up at the sky and sigh. "Definitely. Lu Qing smiled and said seriously, "There are people who are more boring than me." Just as he finished his sentence, he added silently, "For example, the Dragon King." In the blink of an eye, it was time for the farewell scene. In front of the camera, Shu Rui reached out and shook Lu Cheng's hand. "Thank you so much for your cooperation this week. Sorry for bothering you." "Nothing," replied Lu Cheng politely. Finally, I've always wanted to ask you something. Lu Cheng, do you feel that your daily schedule is like that of a robot, running according to a fixed plan, precise, regular, and very, very restrained?" Shu Rui couldn't help but ask. Lu Cheng thought for a moment and said, "The path of physical invulnerability can't be walked without restraint. No. What I mean is, other than the daily training, the few physical invulnerability mighty ones I've come into contact with all have rich and varied, spare-time lives. As for you, it's not that the internet isn't interesting. It's just that even when you're playing games, reading novels, or browsing Weibo, you give people the feeling that you're restraining yourself and restraining your desires. You lack the expression of your emotions and the interaction of your social circle." Shu Rui's description wasn't accurate enough. In short, he wasn't lonely. Compared to when he was in university, he was more and more restrained and introverted. "It's alright. I usually interact with my teammates. As for friends, they're all over the place and not by my side," replied Lu Cheng with a smile. I seem to smell a faint sense of loss." "That's right. At the level of physical invulnerability, new friends are probably in the same social circle or at the same level. It's very rare, let alone in the same city." Shu Rui nodded thoughtfully. Then, her single dimple appeared. "As you grow up, your friends will only get fewer and fewer. Alright, that's the end of the program. Thank you again for your cooperation. Oh right, are you going to sign up for the Warrior Sage battle at the beginning of May? After the Master battle, you haven't participated in any title matches. You've missed the King and Super class matches consecutively." Lu Qing smiled and nodded slightly. "I will. After conserving for so long, all that's left is the Warrior Sage battle." The National University Martial Arts competitions came to an end. Songqing University once again entered the top 4 and maintained their position in the circle. May 3rd, in the villa at Shepe Lake. Lu Qing sat on the sofa with the big backpack beside him. He held the remote control in his hand and seemed to be waiting for something while watching a TV program idly. Welcome to the preview of the Warrior Sage battle. In the live broadcast room on the screen, the host and guest commentator He Xiaowei were talking about highlights from time to time. It's the beginning of May again. It's time for the new Warrior Sage battle. Xiaowei, I heard that the Martial Artist Association is planning a reform. They're going to change the 5 major title matches from annual to biannual and stagger them. Yeah, I heard the news. After all, there are more and more such matches and they're running out of time. Physical invulnerability experts are also starting to selectively participate. It's better to increase the number of years and increase the value of the titles. The bald poison milk hierarch, He Xiaowei, replied with a smile. However, they'll only start in the year after next year at the earliest. Ever since he changed his Weibo name and shaved off all the hair on his head, he felt that his career was getting better and better. Recently, he had even become a special guest on one of the top 3 TV stations in the country. Valuable. That's a good word. The host took this opportunity to start the conversation. Speaking of valuable, among the 5 major titles, the earliest ones, Warrior Sage and King, are still the most valuable and valued. They're similar to ancient martial arts competitions and each have a sense of history. Among them, the rules of the Warrior Sage battle are the simplest. It's a single elimination round to determine the mighty one who can challenge the previous Warrior Sage. Among them, the mighty one with a title will be seated. The 16 Inhumans who won the first round and the preliminaries will fight as mentors. If there are less than 16 titled mighty ones, the physical invulnerability experts will choose the martial artist closest to that level. Generally, it's based on performance in the past year. Some will age and some will regress. The rest of the physical invulnerability experts will fight in pairs. In the second round, the titles won't touch. If there's a bye, the top 32 will be decided. After that, there will be no restrictions. After the host finished speaking, He Xiaowei continued. Excluding Warrior Sage, Qian Donglu, there are a total of 13 titled Mighty Ones who signed up this year. All of them are still active in professional competitions. As for the rest, most of them are old and cherishing their reputation, so they don't want to appear again. The 13 titled experts are Dragon King, Chen Qitao, Kiran Dong Baxian, Supreme Class Ji Hai, Path Sword, Wu Qiao, Queen of Thought, Fei Dan, Divine Monk, Fa Yuan, Spear King, Huang Ku, Empress Luo, and Ning Zitong, God-slaying Saber Lu Yongyuan, Heaven's Equal Sword, Feng Ji, Long Dam that Protects the Sea, Ma Xinghong, and Lion King, Shang Yud. The physical invulnerability experts chose the ones with the best performances last year, who are closest to this level, but don't have a title yet, are Living Buddha Shi Shan, Evening Light Liang Yifan, and the Clown Gu Jianxi. Hehe, speaking of which, I'm impressed. The clown has displayed the strength and drive to compete for titles in the past year. He even made Spear King Old Man go crazy. This means that the Wiyue Club has 2 superclass Mighty Ones. They're no longer in the middle of the pack. It's a pity that both Deadly Chill Xian Xiaoya and Black and White Divine Saber Shiyue Jian are still lacking. If only Lu Qing had stayed back then, they would have been qualified to compete with Daxing Temple and Shushan Study for the top 3. The host listened quietly and chuckled. I don't know if you're praising the Wiyue Club or feeling sorry for them. I don't think they want to be praised by me, said He Xiaowei in an open-minded manner, as though he had already accepted his fate. That's right. Everyone knows the name of Toxic Healer. The host didn't tease him any further and returned to the topic. These are the official 16 seeds. Next are the 8 challengers that our TV station and our program team have selected. They are the 8 most promising Mighty Ones to win the right to challenge for the Warrior Sage title. Regardless of their age, they have all displayed enough strength in the past 12 months. Next, let's look at the big screen. First, Dragon King. Without a doubt, he's the Dragon King. As one of the legendary twins and the winner of 18 titles, does he need any other reason? Second, Kiran Dong Baxian. His claim to be one of the top 3 is gaining more and more recognition. However, his focus is probably on defending the title of Kiran. Third, Supreme Class Ji Hai. He's the most popular young Mighty One in the past 3 years. He has already won 2 titles and is currently in good condition. He's looking forward to a breakthrough. Fourth, Taoist Sword Wu Qiao. His contemporaries, Divine Monk Fa Yuan, and the rest have all started to decline. He's the only one who's still at his peak. It's rare. He's a strong contender in every title battle. Furthermore, even now, he's ranked in the top 3 in terms of the number of titles he's won. Fifth, God-slaying Saber Lu Yongyuan. He created his own saber technique and improved further. His standard is obvious to all. He still has the habit of failing miserably in unexpected situations, but please believe in his performance when facing strong opponents. Sixth, Heaven's Equal Sword Feng Ji. As the number 1 Mighty One in Kongtong School, his physical invulnerability career overlaps with that of Dragon King and Warrior Sage. He's firmly suppressed by them and his strength is always underestimated. However, even so, he still managed to win the title of Master once in the past 10 years. He's currently at the peak of the 3 tiers of physical invulnerability, mental strength, and experience. Seventh, Late Bloomer Liang Yifan. He's a Mighty One who's slowly matured. In the past 10 title battles, he's entered the top 4 times and won the right to challenge once. He's getting closer and closer to winning the first title. Eighth, Clown Gu Jianxi. His growth rate is astonishing. He entered the Supreme Class round-robin competition at the beginning of the year and was immediately designated as first pin. almost everyone believes that it's only a matter of time before he wins the title. These 8 are the mighty ones among the mighty ones in this battle of warrior sage. At this point, Lu Qing received a message. He switched off the TV with a click of his finger. Then, he picked up his luggage and typed with one hand. "Let's go." Clang. The door of the villa opened and closed. Lu Qing strode out. Chapter 713. In Lu Cheng's fan forum. I have a feeling that Senior can go one step further and enter the top 8. Eternal Nightfall, Yan Shaoling said aggressively. What a coincidence. I have the same feeling. Brahman chimed in with a handshake. Unparalleled Dragon King said, "You two are starting to lose your luck so early? This is not like the Master Battle, where the early stage is a double elimination system. There is still room for recovery if you lose one round. If you really get a strong opponent, it's not surprising that you get eliminated in the first round. Accumulating your luck is very important." Bull Demon King replied. A plumber eating mushroom analyzed, "This round is still okay. There are a lot of weak opponents, so the probability of getting a strong opponent is lower. From the second round onwards, it will be a battle of luck." I suddenly realized that luck is very important. "All the good names are taken by dogs," replied. I was wrong. I admit my mistake." Yan Shaoling had never cared about things like face, so she quickly changed the topic. "Then let's talk about Senior's future title of King. He's always said that his martial arts are Cosmic Universe style, so how about King of Time?" "No, I thought it was that King Zhou." "Then, let's call him King of Stars." "King of the Stars, what a nice name." "What, King of Gorillas?" Okamoto's fan asked. Road to the Arena laughed. "What, King of Cinder?" I'll spread it, is that not enough? You guys are too much. Every word has a bunch of homophones. Don't bother about the details. It's unavoidable. Just like Dragon King, isn't it easy to mistake it as Deaf King?" Yan Shaoling said. After this, the forums suddenly quieted down. No one replied for a full minute, making Yan Shaoling anxious and uneasy. "Where is he?" She couldn't help but ask. "Little Nightfall, don't go out these days. You'll get beaten easily," Brahman said. Yan Shaoling said, I'll delete it, okay?" May 11th, Heshi City, on the eve of the draw for the second round of the Warrior Sage battle. Lu Qing sat cross-legged on the bed, watching the hotel TV while chatting on QQ. In the first round, he drew Gowen of the Black Tortoise School, who had advanced in the same year. This did not mean that Gowen was weak. As the leader of the new generation of the Black Tortoise sect, she did not practice the unique skills of the Water sect or the Black Tortoise True Sword. Because she was from the Miao tribe and had a talent for witchcraft, she had chosen the incomplete chapters of the Plague sect that were kept by the sect. Regardless of whether it was the Plague emissary that filled the surroundings with viruses and other substances to weaken the enemy, the 5 Plagues poison palm that was fatal in every move, or the 9th move, Emperor Lu's finger, Scorpion swings its tail, she had mastered all of them and was close to the second order. Unfortunately, her opponent was Lu Qing. The Infernal Inferno of the Fire sect could minimize the effects of Plague Emissary. The cannon attack of 9 rotations of 5 flames also made it difficult for the Plague sect to perform many of the unique skills they needed to learn. In the end, she was defeated helplessly. Of course, this wasn't just because of their styles. More importantly, Lu Cheng's strength was more than half a level higher than hers. After replying to Little Fairy, Lu Qing switched to the group chat and saw Renli popping up. "Let's continue the bet. Let's see who can last until the end. The winner will treat us to a meal." "You seem to be brooding over the previous result." Lu Qing chuckled to himself. It was as though he could see Renli's unconvinced expression. He replied concisely, "Sure. I'm fine with it." Peng Lian followed. And Chaoyang sighed deeply and said, I can only wait for next year. He had placed first in the preliminaries of the warrior sage battle and had entered the main competition. In the first round, he had drawn Dragon King and received guidance. However, what he meant by next year was, at this time next year, should also be a physical invulnerability expert. Just as he finished his sentence, the lot drawing officially began. There would be a few buys in this round, but Lu Cheng was unlucky to hear his name first. Longhu, Lu Cheng. I wonder who it will be. Lu Cheng cast his gaze towards the television screen. A few seconds later, the guest took out another ball and laughed. Haiyuan, Long Zhen. He was once the second leading player of the Longhu Club. He was close to a superclass mighty one. Damn, what a coincidence. Lu Cheng picked up his phone and pressed on the virtual keyboard. Just as he was about to send a message to his wife, he saw Ku send a dumbfounded emoji. It's true. Enemies are bound to meet. But his enemy is Dragon King. Smiling with tears expression, Lu Cheng replied. Yenjika replied, looking up at the sky expression, in essence, it's you. You're taking his place. It's inevitable that everyone will compare you to him, that's true. Lu Cheng felt an inexplicable sense of anticipation. In the internal team practice last year, I didn't even win against Long Zhen once. In the hotel where the Haiyuan Club was staying. Long Zhen, who was more than 2 meters tall, was sitting on the sofa. He didn't even look at the television and was slowly burning a cigar. Around him, which Qian Hui was sitting beside him, Cheetah, Li Yuanqi was pacing back and forth with his hands behind his back, and, empty nest old man, Wu Maoyan was smoking a cigar leisurely. From time to time, he would call his old friends to harass them. When the results of the first round were out, Qian Hui, Li Yuanqi, and the rest turned their gazes towards Long Zhen. However, they found that this bald, fierce-looking man didn't show any emotion. After leisurely enjoying his cigar, he smiled and said, "That's how small the world is." He looked around, leaned back, and said, "You're right. If I were to draw him at this time next year, I wouldn't dare to guarantee it." He took another puff of his cigar and exhaled a cloud of smoke. "As for now, yeah. You're the one who wants to challenge the Dragon King. How could you be stopped by Lu Cheng?" Wu Maoyan laughed heartily. Long Zhen didn't say anything else. He laughed and continued to enjoy his cigar. After that, there were quite a few matches between the strong. However, due to the principle of avoiding seeds, there was a lack of classic matches. When it ended, there were a few who got a bye and directly entered the top 32, including Morning Star, Ren Li and a sect leader of the Shangqing sect. This made Lu Cheng and Peng Lian dumbfounded. They deeply felt the difference between the lucky ones and the unlucky ones. The next afternoon, in the Immensity Desert. In a dark, barren land, surrounded by weathered stone pillars, it didn't look like the work of nature. It looked more like the work of man. This was the venue and spectator seats of the warrior sage battle. Of course, these stone pillars were quite a distance away from the desert to prevent damage from the aftershocks. There were also experts from the Martial Artist Association patrolling the area. As the contestant for the first match, Lu Cheng came out of his tent, locker room, early. He passed his phone and other belongings to Alman. Braving the scorching desert wind, he walked step by step to the center of the arena. Opposite him, Long Zhen was like half a metal tower. His steps were steady and his body heavy as he walked over. He was wearing a loose sky blue martial arts suit. Just his appearance alone was enough to make people feel pressured. Stopping at the predetermined spot, Long Zhen looked at Lu Cheng and smiled. "This isn't a team practice. I'll give it my all. P.S. Recommend a book, The Perfect Future of Rebirth. I guarantee the quality of a novel." However, who gave him the courage to ask me for a recommendation? Isn't he afraid of death? Chapter 714. Just in time, Lu Cheng replied with a smile. "It's exactly because it's not a team practice that I'm looking forward to it. Amidst the sandstorm, the referee raised his right hand, exhaled, and announced, "Talk time begins." Long Zhen didn't say anything. He lowered his back and assumed a horse stance. Light gathered in his eyes as he looked at Lu Qing. The temperature around them rose steadily. Lu Qing didn't back down. His will was strong and his aura was strong. The purple light in his eyes flickered as though he was an ancient emperor standing tall. Bam bam bam. Where their gazes met, the dry air was ignited one after another. Even though the wind was howling and the flames flickered, they didn't extinguish. It was as though they were being supported by self-spewing oil. Bam bam bam. The pure desert was engulfed by the red flames. The referee slowed his breathing to prevent his airway from being damaged by the high temperature. He quickly left the center and ran to the edge. Looking at this legendary scene, Yan Zhika and the rest in front of the screen felt their hearts skip a beat. They could feel the tension of the impending battle. As the atmosphere clashed, Lu Qing slowly and solemnly formed the 5 flames. Faint purple, blazing white, golden, light blue, and red circled around him as though he was escorting a deity. Long Zhen, who also practiced the unique skills of the fire sect, didn't follow suit. The power of his 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descent of the Sun might be slightly better than Lu Qing's, but he had his own strengths and weaknesses. He couldn't do it as easily as Lu Qing and maintain it for long. To him, the 5 flames were extremely mentally draining and burdensome. It could only be used in close combat. While attacking the enemy, he would form a fireball. It was equivalent to accumulating chi with every punch before unleashing his ultimate move. If he were to learn from Lu Qing and prepare from the start, he would end up drawing a tiger but end up drawing a dog instead. Among the current physical and vulnerability experts, the cosmic universe style was the only one. Seeing that the fire was spreading and that the entire desert was about to blossom with a crimson lotus, the referee waved his arm and shouted, "Stop. Begin." Whoosh. Long Zhen instantly formed a golden fireball and shot it at Lu Qing from afar. Among the 5 flames circling around Lu Qing, a faint purple flame flashed across the sky like a meteor. Just as the 2 fireballs were about to collide, Long Zhen's golden ball suddenly split into 2. One went down while the other went up. One stuck close to the bottom of the ball of purple, while the other leaped over the obstacle and headed straight for the target. The second style of the fire sect, golden godly fire. Only when it was propelled by fire force could it unleash its full power. It was adept at changing its trajectory, gathering and dispersing at will. Long Zhen's main cultivation was fire force. However, Lu Qing's faint purple was unusually heavy. Everything around it slowed down as though it was being pulled by it. As a result, Golden Gold, who was trying to leap over the obstacle, was exhausted. It was as though he was a high jumper who had been running to the toilet all night. Emperor Yan Force, the sovereign of flames, could affect all flames. Rumble. The descending golden ball brushed past the faint purple ball, and both fell into an unstable state before exploding. The flames expanded and rolled, engulfing the golden ball that couldn't overtake in time and triggering it. Rumble. Long Zhen, who was testing the waters, stretched his body and took a step forward. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The hurricane that swept across the desert grew bigger and filled Lu Qing's ears. The flames grew stronger and stronger. Mixed with the golden red, it was as though a prairie fire was about to be set ablaze. At this moment, it was as though Long Zhen had melded into the flames and hidden in the wind. Lu Qing, who was standing high above with his ice heart, could only vaguely sense him. He couldn't accurately predict which direction he would attack from. He looked like he wanted to fight head-on and live up to his image. However, in reality, he was trying to trick Lu Qing into blindly combining the 5 flames. Fire sect movement technique, 6th style, wheels of wind and fire. Whoosh. Long Zhen closed the distance quickly. He suddenly appeared from the flames and leaped out from the wind. His huge and terrifying body leaned to one side, bending his back and slamming into Lu Qing's left side at high speed. The surface of his body ignited from the friction. Red and golden, he controlled it at will. Before he even got close, his pure strength was suffocating. Lu Cheng had a premonition and sensed the danger. With a twist of his waist, he half-turned his body, raised his left arm, and smashed down with his fist. As the punch was thrown, the 5 flames, red, light blue, and faint purple, circled closer and were about to converge. Many in the audience had already closed their eyes to avoid the glaring light of the descent of the sun. At this moment, Long Zhen's temples suddenly bulged. His speed of slamming into Lu Cheng increased, leaving behind faint afterimages as he closed in on Lu Cheng's body before the punch landed. Simplified Attainment Formula. As a physical invulnerability expert in the military, he had been accumulating merit points to exchange for the 9 words formula ever since he gathered them. Due to the fact that the mastermind behind Haiyuan wanted to show off in front of Longhu, this matter had been kept a secret. Long Zhen had also restrained his urge to use it in the recent arena battles. He wanted to give the Dragon King a surprise in the Warrior Sage battle. Who would have thought that he would meet Lu Cheng in advance? Even though he didn't say it out loud, he felt that he shouldn't care. However, it was a fact that Lu Cheng had taken over his original position. As long as they fought, there would always be nosy people comparing the two of them. If he lost or won with great difficulty, it wasn't hard to imagine what others would say. The prideful Long Zhen wouldn't allow such a thing to happen. Therefore, not only did he want to win, he wanted to win beautifully and cleanly. Based on this mentality, he planned to use one of his trump cards against the Dragon King on Lu Cheng. That was to fake the activation and use the simplified attainment formula to accelerate the second stage without warning at the critical moment, snatching the moment when the 5 flames were about to converge. At this moment, his opponent's fist had yet to hit him and the great sun had yet to descend. He would be able to break through his defense and complete the fatal attack. Furthermore, as the 5 flames were about to converge, Lu Cheng's attention was focused and he couldn't multitask. He couldn't detonate the flame force in his body, change directions strangely, or use the ice spirit to defend and counter-freeze. He couldn't dodge or defend even if he wanted to. When he succeeded in his attack and caused the 5 flames to lose control and explode, he could still grab hold of his opponent and use his body as a shield to block off most of the impact, causing him to suffer a second round of damage. Following which, he would release his Dan Qi and extend his limbs. While his opponent was down, he would take his life and complete the quick victory. Only those who had a deep understanding of the 9 rotations of 5 flames and possessed sufficient strength could come up with such a plan and seize that fleeting moment. Unfortunately, Long Zhen was one of them. His strongest point was his weakest point. At this moment, Lu Cheng felt as though everything around him had slowed down. The 5 flames were about to converge into the great sun. Long Zhen was closing in on him in slow motion, making it difficult to dodge and impossible to defend. The outcome was irreversible. In the blink of an eye, he made a prompt decision and gave up on controlling the 5 flames. His right arm, which was in front of him, swung like a spear and pushed outwards. His 5 fingers spread open and pressed on Long Zhen's shoulder. Like the most precise robot, Lu Cheng's mind was filled with every detail of his body. He adjusted his wriggling muscles, fascias, and organs without a single mistake. With a flick of his palm, his body was about to fly backwards to negate Long Zhen's innate strength and the terror of physical invulnerability. Bam! He was like a baseball that had been hit. His speed was so fast that the enemy's outstretched hand missed him. Pfft! He spat out a mouthful of blood in midair. His right arm was fractured. No matter how hard he tried to negate the force, he couldn't completely negate it. Boom! The 5 flames went out of control prematurely. Lights of various colors shot out together with a mushroom cloud. After the collision, Long Zhen wasn't able to grab Lu Cheng in time. He had no choice but to give chase and escape from the core of the explosion. Even so, he was affected by the shockwaves and looked rather pathetic. Lu Cheng landed on his feet and immediately turned to adjust his breathing. He knew that his opponent had most likely mastered the attainment formula. As for the other 9 words formula, he had to be on guard. He wasn't surprised or angry. Instead, he was delighted. If it was any other competition, no matter how confident he was, he had to admit that he only had a 30 to 40% chance of winning against Longzhen. However, if it was a competition of the 9 words formula, he didn't believe that Longzhen would be able to stack the 9 words formula while using force concentration at the same time. Only the Lu couple knew about the Cosmic Universe sect. Even if others knew a thing or two, they wouldn't be able to see the whole picture. Misfortune can be a blessing in disguise. Then I'll create an opportunity for him to compete with the 9 words formula. Whoosh! Lu Qing whipped up a blizzard and circled towards Longzhen. Chapter 7:15. The wind howled and the feathers fluttered, clouding Lu Cheng's vision, hearing, and spirit. Lu Cheng was like the embodiment of the wind and the cold. He was indistinguishable from his surroundings. Just as everyone thought he was using this opportunity to adjust his condition and heal his injuries, the wind and snow parted. Light blue flames shot out from his back and feet. He charged towards Longzhen, the Optimus Prime. His fist was in front of him, as though he was about to break through the air barrier. As the afterimage lengthened, Lu Cheng's qi and blood circulated. His body was stimulated, and he stacked the simplified attainment formula. His speed increased again, and he appeared in front of Longzhen like a ghost. His fist didn't have any special effects, just a layer of flames due to the friction. However, terrifying speed equaled power and destruction. The entire process took 2 seconds. The commentators didn't even have time to say anything. They only felt that Lu Cheng was giving Longzhen a taste of his own medicine. If Longzhen could use the second part of the attainment formula to accelerate, so could I. In fact, I could do it better and faster than you. Longzhen wasn't surprised at all. Instead, there was a hint of mockery in his eyes. Longzhen watched as the wind swept towards his face like a steel plate. His opponent appeared in front of him as though he had teleported. His fist was coming at him at an unbelievable speed. Longzhen's body moved to the side without warning. He grasped the timing perfectly as though he had rehearsed this thousands of times. I know you know the 9 words formula. How could I not be prepared? I didn't secretly leave behind fire force to change direction in time. Bam! Lu Cheng's fist hit Longzhen's afterimage. The sound of air breaking could be heard, and a strong gust of wind swept up. Longzhen didn't move too far. His muscles bulged, and his back tensed. He turned around and grabbed with his right hand. Layers of golden light gathered into a single point. Bam! With the golden light in his palm, he clenched his fist and struck at his enemy. Lu Cheng's attack missed. He took advantage of the momentum and stepped forward. He retracted his left arm and swung it upwards like a dragon swinging its tail, hitting Longzhen's fist. Bam! When the two collided, the golden light collapsed and spread out, covering Lu Cheng from head to toe like a human-shaped torch. The flames flowed on his clothes, the back of his hands and neck, the corners of his face, his eyelashes, and his hair. Lu Cheng had no choice but to close his eyes to avoid being hurt. The first move of the fire sect, prairie fire with a single spark. However, these flames seemed to have been tamed and were unable to harm Lu Cheng for a while. They were quickly extinguished by the diffusing crystals and white frost. Longzhen wouldn't let go of this opportunity. His burly body expanded as his Dan Qi gushed out. His muscles bulged out like serpents. He looked down from above and smashed down with his fist. He was born with divine strength. Faced with such a scene, Lu Cheng couldn't help but feel suffocated by the pure, domineering power. He stabbed out with a simplified fighting formula and seemingly transformed into a giant in a hurry. He raised his arm to congeal flames to block the attack. Rumble. Faint purple and golden sparks flew everywhere. Lu Cheng barely managed to stabilize himself and didn't retreat half a step. However, Longzhen wasn't going to let him off easily. He swung his arms and started to punch Lu Cheng crazily. Every move was filled with ferocious strength. This made Lu Cheng tired of defending. Sometimes he would retreat, but it was hard for him to break free. He was firmly locked in by his opponent and trapped in close combat. Bang bang bang. Amidst the sounds of collisions, golden and crimson fireballs gradually formed behind Long Zhen's back. We can use the jargon of the game to express it. When the chi accumulates and the 5 flames appear, it will be time for him to use his ultimate move. Kai Zhongming, the live commentator, said in a low voice, trying to be funny. Lu Cheng, who had been completely suppressed by Long Zhen, knew that his opponent wouldn't necessarily wait for the 5 flames to gather. Once again, he adjusted his muscles, fascia, and organs in a subtle and balanced manner. Bang! When their fists collided, Lu Cheng's body was pulled back and he was sent flying. His injuries worsened. In midair, he ignited the fire force in his body and made several turns in an attempt to evade. Seeing this, Long Zhen smiled and took a big step forward. With the attainment formula as the surface and the fire virtue hidden, he was not only faster, but also more unpredictable than Lu Cheng. He completely locked onto Lu Cheng, not allowing the distance between them to widen. In this regard, Emperor Yan was no match for Fire Da. When he caught up with them, it would be time to combine the 5 flames and summon the arrival of the sun. At this moment, Lu Cheng's center of gravity sank and he stopped abruptly. He seemed to have made preparations in his escape. Or perhaps it was a hasty move to break free. He raised his right hand and clenched his fist. Dazzling darkness appeared in his palm. Tilting northwest, sinking southeast. This was a killer move that he had learned from the restriction sect. Just like Lu Yongyuan's eternal silence, half of it was used to affect one's mental state. When it was used at this critical moment, Long Zhen's vision turned dark instantly. He could only see a jade-white palm pressing down on him, restraining the space and destroying everything. The 5 flames, which were maintained purely by mental strength, were obviously shaking and close to losing control. Long Zhen had also studied the Clear Jade chapter and had his own gains. However, he was currently in the midst of the 9 rotations of 5 flames and couldn't make any adjustments. It looked like he could only go with the flow and throw out fireballs. However, under the mental interference of the enemy, there was a high chance that the trajectory would be wrong and he wouldn't be able to hit his target. If it were in the past, Long Zhen would explode the 5 flames when they were still some distance away from each other. It would cover everything and block his opponent's attack. He would then take some damage and regroup. However, he had a better idea now. It was the complete 9 words formula that could weaken the enemy, strengthen himself, strengthen his mind, and break through suppression. As the thought flashed through his mind, Long Zhen quickly outlined the complicated seal script of the 9 words formula. His hands formed the same complicated seal, preparing for a strange and incomprehensible sound. When he saw Long Zhen forming the seal, Lu Cheng retracted his chi and blood and stopped the move. He focused his mind and force on his lower abdomen. In the miniature universe, the stars moved. Dazzling and familiar ancient words were written one after another. Confrontation. Army. Fighting. Swordsman. Wholeness. Formation. Deference. Forwarding. Attainment. They appeared at the same time, as though they had always been hidden in the starry sky. When the 9 words formula came together, Lu Cheng's Dan Qi gushed out. He pushed his palms forward and used the complete 9 words formula. With a hum, Long Zhen's mind strangely fell back. The complicated seal script that was about to form collapsed and brought about a severe backlash. It was as though his head had been hit by a martial artist. It was so uncomfortable that he wanted to vomit blood. Lu Cheng had spent so much time and effort to create this opportunity. There was no reason for him to let it go. He took a big step forward and activated the fighting formula. He transformed into a giant with flames, undercurrents, and ice crystals. Holding a giant hammer, he threw a punch at his opponent. He had purposely let Long Zhen gain the upper hand in order to break down his guard and allow him to start condensing the 5 flames. Lu Cheng's tilting northwest, sinking southeast wasn't complete and couldn't complete it in time. It was purely a mental simulation to force Long Zhen to use the complete 9 words formula. Lu Qing then relied on his advantage to get in front of Long Zhen and interrupt his preparation. Not only would Long Zhen receive negative effects, but he would also suffer a backlash. Bam! Lu Qing punched downwards. Covered in a heavy faint purple, he pulled Long Zhen's 5 flames, which had lost control of his mind and was about to lose control, towards his opponent. Rumble. The raging flames engulfed both figures. The ice crystals on Lu Cheng's body shattered and he was covered in wounds. However, he didn't care about the damage from the indiscriminate explosion. That was because compared to him, Long Zhen suffered a greater portion of the impact. Long Zhen's scalp was a mess of flesh and blood. He staggered backward with blood at the corners of his mouth and nose. The arm he used to block Lu Cheng's punch was trembling non-stop. Lu Qing took a step forward with his left leg enclosed in once again. Taking advantage of his opponent's dizziness and sluggishness, he adjusted his mind and body. He raised his right palm and held the miniature universe. He struck out the reel tilting northwest, sinking southeast. Surrounded by darkness, Long Zhen saw that he couldn't avoid it. Ferocious, he activated the fighting formula and transformed into a giant that exceeded human limits. He threw a punch at Lu Qing. Bam! Amidst the terrifying commotion, the turbulent airflow blocked his vision. Long Zhen, who wasn't in his best condition, felt that his opponent's punch was so exaggerated that it could crush him. His body felt heavy and his bones cracked. He was forced to shrink by more than a meter. The explosion had turned the surrounding desert into a crater. The surface of the ground had loosened, and Long Zhen fell in up to his waist. His qi and blood were churning as he spat out crimson liquid that ignited on its own. He wanted to break free but lacked the strength to do so. Bam! Lu Qing spun around and pulled back his leg. His left leg tightened and pressed against Long Zhen's temple. His movements were elegant and beautiful. The two of them had exchanged blows for less than a minute. The referee was silent for 2 seconds. He raised his right hand and announced in a deep voice, "Lu Qing wins." Chapter 716. What the F***CK? What just happened? Kai Zongming blurted out in a live stream. He couldn't hide his astonishment. He was worried that Lu Cheng's counterattack would be effective. He was worried that he could break free from Long Zhen's suppression and regroup. But in the blink of an eye, he ended the battle with just 2 punches and a kick. Wasn't there something missing in between? I wasn't actually watching the live stream, but the video highlights. From the moment Lu Qing was about to use tilting northwest, sinking southeast, the entire process was cut out. Connecting to the end? This doesn't make sense at all. After a few seconds of silence, comments flooded the screen. They were all words such as, dumbfounded, 10 dumbfounded, 100 dumbfounded, diagonal dumbfounded, and, power function dumbfounded. I suspect I'm watching a fake match. Could it be that Lu Qing has the supernatural ability to stop time and use the pause to complete the key to his comeback? Maybe Long Zhen was distracted. I often do that. No, I have to take a break. This is too F***king magical and F***king exciting. Kai Zongming quickly collected his thoughts and said with a smile, no matter what, Lu Qing won the match. As his ex-roommate and ex-teammate, I'll maintain a neutral and objective attitude. I won't comment. Before he could finish his sentence, the bullet screen popped up one by one. F***ck, I underestimated you. I can't believe you didn't praise Lu Qing. You didn't get carried away and celebrate. That's not your style. Without waiting for the audience to finish lamenting, Kai Zongming chuckled and said, I'll give the right to comment to my partner. Next, let's welcome my partner, Little Ming, the talker. He coughed and lowered his voice. Hello, everyone. I'm Little Ming, the talker. In a battle between physical and vulnerability experts, there's almost no such thing as a quick victory, not to mention an expert who's publicly acknowledged to be the weaker one. And today, Lu Qing did it. Ellipses appeared one after another. The audience was speechless. After a long while, they popped up one after another. The city is full of tricks. I'm going back to the countryside. You can do that? Host, I admire your shamelessness and all kinds of tricks. Are you going to perform a duet? While the self-proclaimed martial artists with extraordinary insight were discussing the key to Lu Cheng's victory, Empress Luo, Ning Zidong, stood at the entrance of the tent and sighed. After the accident and falling into a passive state, he figured out the whole story almost instantly and used that as an excuse to set up a trap. He led Long Zhen by the nose and led him into the trap step by step. Putting everything else aside, Lu Cheng's talent in battle and improvisation are already hard to come by. He can unleash 120% of his full strength. Lu Yan, who was beside him, habitually sang a different tune. It's mainly because of Long Zhen's mentality. He actually wanted to take down Lu Cheng in one go. Even if the warrior sage was in his position, he wouldn't consider such a thing. At the end of his sentence, he silently added in his heart. Seizing the opportunity to turn the tables and defeat Long Zhen wasn't something that would come naturally. Lu Cheng's martial arts were getting more and more refined. Ning Zidong nodded her head gently and laughed. Long Zhen fell a little too hard this time. What do you think? She turned to look at the Dragon King, Qin Chitao, who was standing with his arms crossed. Qin Chitao replied expressionlessly, his mentality isn't right. His brain isn't good. Pfft. If Long Zhen were to hear this, wouldn't he faint from anger? Ning Zidong almost laughed out loud. Yeah, the Dragon King had always been mean and vicious when it came to commenting on his enemies. However, he would never be long-winded to avoid affecting his dignified image. But then again, the last sentence made a lot of sense. Long Zhen didn't even think about where the 9 words formula came from, and who was the one who inherited it. When faced with Lu Cheng's constant retreat and passivity, didn't he pay more attention and raise his guard? Who gave him the courage to compete with the 9 words formula? Didn't he consider the possibility of being countered? Of course, a wrong mentality could lead to a deviation in thinking. Blindly seeking victory and forgetting the small details. The Dragon King might be extremely concerned about winning and losing, but as long as he was in the arena and on the battlefield, his judgment wouldn't be affected by such emotions. The stronger the flame, the calmer the heart. Long Zhen, who was being commented on, stood in the desert in a daze. Half of his body was buried in the sand, and he had completely forgotten about leaping up. The voice of Lu Cheng wins echoed in his ears. His mind was blank and filled with cold snowflakes. I lost? I lost to Lu Cheng? And I lost so easily and so weakly. How is this possible? Why did this happen? He knew very well what the crux of victory was, but he couldn't understand why he would make such a mistake. He was even more resistant to the expected pointing and slandering comments. At this moment, he saw Lu Cheng retract his leg and straighten his body. He heard him say calmly, "You were too hasty. Too hasty." As Long Zhen mulled over the words, Lu Cheng turned around and walked to the edge of the arena. His right arm was trembling and swollen. In less than 10 seconds, it had cracked under Long Zhen's surprise. Although he took care of it afterward, it was impossible to avoid it completely in such an intense battle. His injury gradually worsened, and towards the end, he couldn't care less. Enduring the pain, he used the realm of minute control to execute tilting heaven northwest, sinking earth southeast. Fortunately, such an injury would heal in about 2 days. It wouldn't affect the 3rd round, which was the round of 32 to 16. In the other tent, Empty Nest Elder, Wu Malian, looked into the distance with his hands behind his back. He shook his head and sighed. It's not a problem to target the Dragon King and the Warrior Sage. They are ambitious, after all. However, if you only target them and look down on the other mighty ones, it's easy to slip up and let others take advantage of you. After today, the outside world will probably think that Lu Qing replacing Long Zhen is a good thing for the Longhu Club. It hasn't been long, and he has already achieved his first victory. Moreover, one has just been promoted and hasn't fully converted his potential into strength. The other has been famous for many years and is close to being fixed. As time passes, he will completely suppress Long Zhen. This isn't my opinion, but the inevitable public opinion. Whether Long Zhen can walk out of today's shadow and readjust his mentality is crucial to him. Heh. To be precise, at first pin, one's mentality directly affects one's potential. Those who succeed will continue to have hopes of catching up to the Dragon King and the Warrior Sage. Those who fail will be stuck at a bottleneck and will have to pay a higher price to break through. Cheetah Li Yuanqi, which Qian Hui, and the rest listened in silence. The atmosphere in the tent was inexplicably heavy. After a long time, Qian Hui muttered to herself in confusion, "Old Wu seems to be very familiar with this." With his back to her, Wu Mayan froze and revealed a bitter smile. Ha 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 ha. Although I don't know how he won, it's good that he won. Hands on hips expression, said Yan Shaoling in Lu Cheng's fan forum. Unparalleled Dragon King, replied, wiping cold sweat expression. Ever since Long Zhen reached first pin, no one has beaten him in speed, including the Dragon King and the Warrior Sage. Did Lu Qing eat spinach today? My idol is equal to miracles. Rolling around expression, said Brahman. Amidst the commotion, Yan Shaoling vented her joy to her heart's content and shared the headlines on Weibo and various major websites. An upset or a symbol? Lu Cheng's quick victory over Long Zhen is the biggest upset since the start of the Warrior Sage battle, or does it symbolize that he has the ability to challenge the top 8? The wolf is here. The heavenly sun who has created miracles in every pin is here. Top 8 or top 4? Long Zhen may have left because he had no choice. If he didn't, Lu Cheng would have taken the second leading player position. Lu Cheng had just finished bandaging his right arm and sharing the joy of victory with his little fairy when he received a message from his assistant, Amen. Mr. Lu, post-match interview. After locking the screen, Lu Cheng walked out of the tent and saw a girl with long, thin eyes. Hello, what are your thoughts on your quick victory over Long Zhen? Asked the reporter after holding back for a long time. Lu Cheng deliberated for a moment before replying, the main thing is that there was a problem with his mentality. The new thing he learned happened to be something I was familiar with, so I took advantage of that fleeting opportunity. New thing? Is it the 9 words formula? Asked the reporter. Yes, replied Lu Cheng simply. The reporter paused for 2 seconds, then suddenly smiled brightly and asked, May I know what your goal is in this Warrior Sage battle? Lu Cheng chuckled and said, You guys, if I set my goal too low, you'll think I'm hypocritical. If I set my goal too high, you'll think I'm arrogant. In any case, you'll find a reason to criticize me. No. The reporter laughed awkwardly and shook her head. Without waiting for her to finish, Lu Cheng looked into the camera and laughed to himself, I want to stand on the final stage. Chapter 717. Hearing Lu Cheng's reply, the reporter got excited. She didn't expect him to be so cooperative. She was already imagining the chief editor's praise, the crazy popularity, the increase in her salary, and the promotion of her position. In just a few seconds, she had already thought of her opening speech when she took on the role of chief editor. The headline of the news, the headline would be, I'll fight to the end. Lu Cheng officially challenges the superclass mighty ones. Lu Cheng didn't have thought steal and couldn't hear the reporter's thoughts. However, he didn't care what would happen next. He quickly ended the interview and returned to the tent. While watching Dragon King fight, he chatted with Yan Zhika on his phone. What happened to keeping a low profile? Covering mouth and laughing expression, Yan Zhika was looking at the headlines and forum posts on Weibo. Lu Cheng replied, snickering expression, How can I keep a low profile after defeating Long Zhen so quickly? That's true. Regardless of whether you said it or not, the other physical invulnerability experts would only be cautious and go all out when facing you. With this sentence, you can still hope that someone will fall for it. Nodding expression, Yenjika replied. That's just one aspect. The most important thing is to have a pure heart. Lu Qing stopped joking and explained to Yenjika seriously, if you want to challenge strong opponents and fight to the end but don't dare to say it out loud because you're afraid of public criticism and getting slapped in the face, to most people, this is humility, keeping a low profile, and having self-awareness. However, to physical invulnerability experts, it's not a pure heart. This will affect one's state and affect one's performance in battle. At our level, we have to consider every little bit of interference. Also, not daring to say it shows that you don't have confidence in yourself. Under such circumstances, how can you defeat strong opponents? Are you expecting them to make mistakes? After saying this sentence, I felt more relaxed and focused. In order not to get slapped in the face and mocked by others, I can only squeeze out every ounce of energy to fight for it. Unlike before, I could accept losing to a titled Mighty One or a superclass Mighty One as no one would say anything. Yenjika replied, rubbing chin expression, isn't this what they mean by cutting off all means of retreat? Cheng, you're the best. It had been almost 3 years since they registered their marriage. Other than when they were in love, she was still too embarrassed to call him her husband. Heh, but I still have to overcome the impatience brought about by the pressure. I can't become the second Long Zhen. Coincidentally, enemy heart freezing move is very good at such things. Lu Qing explained to his wife, and also used this opportunity to clear his thoughts and find the hidden dangers. Following that, after 2 days of competition, the top 32 of the martial sage battle were all decided. Peng Liyun defeated Hu Shubai of the Yanzhao League and successfully entered the ranks. None of the 4 heavenly prides were eliminated. This made everyone feel that perhaps the future would truly be an era where they would compete for supremacy. Before the 2-day adjustment period, the drawing of lots for the duel was held as scheduled. Compared to the previous casual arrangement, the organizing committee had invited all 32 participants to the small banquet hall to participate in the ceremony. After a lively and impressive performance, the warrior sage, Qian Donglu, went up to the stage. With the help of the host, the first match was drawn. God-slaying saber, Lu Yongyuan vs. Lion King, Shang Yud. A battle between 2 titled powerhouses. From the start of the top 32, sparks will fly in every match. And Chaoyang, who could only watch the live stream in the hotel, said in the group chat. At a glance, all of them are first pin, except for us, Peng Liyun added exaggeratedly. Lu Qing watched the drawing of lots with a serious expression. Glancing at his phone from the corner of his eye, he said with a smirk, that's why I really want to draw you, the Taoist brand pushover. In response to his deliberate provocation, Peng Liyun replied casually, what a coincidence, me too. After typing, his thoughts drifted away with this thought. For a moment, it was as if he was in a place with no one around. Until his own name sounded. Peng Liyun came back to his senses in a daze. He saw the highlights scrolling on the big screen and finally stopped at a picture of him and his opponent. That opponent was Qiran Dong Baxian. He was stunned at first, then broke into laughter. He said in the group chat, I feel that my luck in drawing lots has always been bad. It's okay. You'll meet him sooner or later. Renli comforted him in her unique way. Lu Qing was about to speak when he saw the guest pick up the ball and call out his name. Hence, he patiently waited for his opponent to appear. After a dozen seconds, the guest smiled and showed the result to the crowd. Kongtong School, Fengji. Heavens equal swordsman, Fengji. A physical invulnerability expert who had won a title in the past 3 years, the #1 expert in Kongtong School. He was recognized by all major TV stations and websites as one of the 8 powerhouses who had a chance of winning the challenge right. This is the difficulty of a nightmare right from the start. Lu Qing mocked himself. He wasn't too affected by it. Just as Renli had said, since he had set his sights high, it was only a matter of time before he met a superclass expert of this level. This was a difficulty that he had to face. There was no way he could avoid it. At the edge of the seat next to Renli, the sturdy and slightly plump Feng Ji nodded thoughtfully. His right hand gently stroked the engraved hilt of his sword. His eyes shone with excitement. He was eager to give it a try. His hair was thin and showed signs of balding. Physical invulnerability experts had terrifying recovery and growth abilities. Given that they could regrow their teeth after losing all of them, this shouldn't be a problem. However, for some reason, Feng Zhi couldn't cure his baldness. He gave off the feeling that he was aging prematurely. According to an anonymous reliable source in the Guanwei League, this was probably due to the conflict between his bloodline power and the essence of the Plague Sect, which had been infused with the unique skills of the Wind Sect, resulting in certain, slight sequelae. In the Jianghu, there were two interesting rumors about Feng Zhi. The first was that he went bald early, and the second was that he liked girls more than 10 years older than him. Some people suspected that the reason was that he had a crush on Ren Li's master when he was young, his martial aunt, the glorious sword, Qi Ling. Of course, this didn't affect his status as a superclass expert. Shaking his head, Lu Qing reported this to his little fairy. Then, he sent a handshake emoji in the group chat. Taoist priest, we are truly brothers in distress. I don't have a brother like you, replied Peng Lian concisely. Damn, priest, you've learned how to ridicule me, replied Lu Cheng with a shocked expression. While they were discussing, Ren Li was also selected. Her opponent was the empty nest geezer, Wu Malian. To the physical invulnerability experts present, this was probably the easiest first pin expert to deal with. It wasn't that Wu Malian had deteriorated so much that the first pin was just a symbol. It was because he was nearing his 60s. When he fought once a week, the deterioration in his condition wouldn't be too obvious. However, with the frequency of one battle every 3 days, he had already fought twice in a row. The problem was obvious. No matter how glorious he was in the past, time wouldn't spare him. Of course, experts in the Forbidden Territory could deteriorate before they died. Ren Li, you actually have the supernatural ability of luck, right? Asked Lu Cheng with a dumbfounded expression. It was rare for Peng Lian to agree with his opinion. I've felt that way for a long time. I'll prove myself. Ren Li had always been confident in her martial arts standards and her ability to recognize directions. Following which, she hesitated for a few seconds before reminding Lu Cheng, senior brother Feng is very good. He's very good at things that I'm not good at. At this point, she felt that she was boosting his morale and diminishing her own. She quickly added, he might not be good at things that I'm good at. Although it was as good as not saying anything, Chihuahua was still a good friend. Lu Cheng thanked her with a smile and watched as the lot drawing ceremony came to an end. In the last round, the new guest drew Dragon King, Qin Chitao. The host chuckled. There's only one left. The Dragon King's opponent is without a doubt. Following the procedure, he replaced the guest and reached into the box excitedly. After touching it, he touched it again and again. After touching it 3 times, his expression changed drastically. Why are there no more balls? Only 31 of them had been drawn? What went wrong in the middle? Well, it doesn't matter if there are no balls. After eliminating the previous 31, it's obvious who's left. Who is it? Who is it? Who is it? Broadcast accident. Broadcast accident. Beads of perspiration formed on his forehead. He turned to look at the guest and saw that he was at a loss. Following which, he looked at the experts below and saw the abbot of Daxing Temple, Divine Monk Fa Yuan, sitting in the first row. His expression seems to be saying, I know what's going on but I won't say. While the host was feeling suspicious, he saw Dragon King's lips moving. Instantly, a mellow, magnetic, and majestic voice rang in his ears. Wu Guang. Yes, yes, yes. I remember now. The host announced with tears in his eyes, Dragon King's opponent is the sect leader of Shangqing sect, Taoist Wu Guang. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.